Hey, how you doing?
Good, good, good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for asking.
Yes. So, Christians turned atheists, the Bible is it true? And how do we know evidence for resurrection of Jesus? What's wrong with the how can Christian not be pro-choice? And
Sure. Okay, can I ask you first? Are you a Christian?
no, I'm not Christian.
Okay. Do you believe in the Bible at all, or no?
No, I don't believe in the Bible. I just believe some of the Bible is from God, but the Bible overall is corrupted. Is basically corrupted by Satan to
Okay.
to make people believe that their sins are forgiven so they can just simply be sinning without being responsible, and that's what Satan wants, as simple as that.
So what God do you believe in?
I believe in Allah
Okay. So what convinced you that Islam is the truth?
because first of all it makes sense, as a human, you need a higher power naturally, and the Quran is loaded with scientific miracles that have, it's basically from 1400 years ago, that nobody can actually know all this stuff where they were living in a desert, right? So that's one of the biggest evidence is the Quran, that it's impossible for some guy that used to live in a desert that doesn't know how to read and write come up with something like the Quran that is loaded with, miracles. Unlike the Bible has no miracles in it because Jesus already did the miracles when people existed. But the last miracle of the prophets, which is Prophet Muhammad, is the book. So the Quran is the last prophet, the last miracle, which makes sense, because if God, like God has wisdom, he left us a book as the last miracle, even after the death of the prophet. So every human being gets the chance to actually use the simplest tool of learning, which is reading, and just read the Quran. That's it.
Okay. So for you, you believe in Islam because you take the Quran as evidence because it makes sense to you and you believe it holds scientific miracles.
Yes.
Okay. So I hear lots of similar claims, including about the Bible. Christians will tell me that about the Bible. How is someone like me to know which one of you is correct?
Look, the Bible and the whole concept of Christianity, it does not make any sense. First of all, they have a lot of books. They don't have just one Bible. No, they have the Old Testament, the New Testament, James update, Virgin of I don't know who. So they have a lot of Bibles, which means that which one is the actual true Bible? The second thing is that the concept of Christianity like is just not does not make any sense. Like, why do I have to repent when God sacrificed himself for my sins? And why, if God is all knowing, if Jesus is all knowing, why he didn't sacrifice himself once he created the first human being, which is Adam? Because that's his the whole thing is that he sacrificed himself because humans can't be perfect, so that's the only way to save them. So this just doesn't make sense, like, and like they don't even worship God like straight to God. No, they put somebody before God, which is Jesus. So if Jesus
Sure.
got crucified and went back to heaven, I guess he's gonna go back to heaven as his original form, right, as God. So why don't you worship God just by him?
So so for me at least, I have not fully finished the Quran. I've gotten through most of it. Some of the things I guess that don't make sense to me at least is this sense that it seems that Allah pretty much predestines things to be the way that they are, people to be the way they are. And, he'll have mercy on whom he has mercy on, he'll destroy whom he wants to destroy. And it seems that those that are wicked, it's just who they are supposed to be, and yet they are punished for it. And I don't see that as a good and just God, like like the Quran claims he is. So
I
that's
think,
something that doesn't make sense to me. Is
yeah,
how can this God be good and just and yet be playing with people?
I think you got the wrong idea of this, by the way, because it's not like how you got it. So basically, in Islam, for God, everything is already done. Like He is the creator. So once you create something, okay, you already know what this thing is gonna be doing because you are the one who created it. So for us, it's different. You know, we are the ones who are actually experiencing this life. For God, this whole life is already done. Everything is already done for Him. So this is what He means with everything is already predestined. It does not mean that you don't have free will. No, you still have free will because everybody has free will right now. Every Muslim has free will. You can do whatever you want. We all know that. But we know that if God, like, He created you this way, maybe there's things that you will never do, not because God wanted you not to not do it, because you are like this. You as a human, your soul is like that. You choose it. You choose it by your own choice, but God is already knowing what you're gonna choose. You know what I mean? But the free will thing in
Well,
Islam is actually
that sounds exactly like what the Christians tell me about their Bible and their God. So, again, it's nothing special or different that you're telling me, and I still am left with the same question of, according to the text, it says that he'll deceive those that he wants to, he'll have mercy on those that he wants to, and it doesn't seem that so while you say that we have free will, I think you and I would both agree that human will never trump God's will. And if God wills that you be deceived, your free will, as much as you want to call it that, is definitely not that. It's you are limited, and your will succumb to God's will. Is that not true?
it, yeah, it's true. Yeah, like it's just
So
that
you don't have free will. If Allah wills something for you, like you to be deceived, then it doesn't matter what you choose. You will be deceived. Correct?
I'm gonna tell you what he means with it. Okay, for example, where were you born?
I was born in Texas.
Okay, sweet. So I was born in Jordan. So did I choose where to get born? No. Did you choose where you got born? No. Did you choose your color? No. Did you choose any of this stuff? No. Are you gonna choose where you're gonna be like after maybe 10 years? Maybe yes, you're gonna choose, but are you gonna end up there for sure?
It's more
Never
probable
know.
that I will choose where I'll be in 10 years versus than like when I was born.
Yeah, yeah, you can, right? But you still, it's not 100%. It means you as a human being, I believe that we just created to actually worship God. That's it. That's our main goal.
Don't you see that as kind of narcissistic and incredibly selfish? That
I think
you, as this ultimate being, for some reason need your ego stroked, that you create a whole species just to worship you. I feel like that sounds very, I don't know, that sounds
so.
sketchy.
How do you what did you, like what is the definition of worshiping for you?
uh, to give to give great adoration for, to something, to the likes of that, to give extreme devotion.
Okay, how much do you love your parents?
I love my mother greatly.
A lot, right?
Hmm.
Okay. The same thing goes to God. Okay,
But I mean, there's a limit to that. I know, and that's been tested. I love my siblings more than I love my mother.
Okay, okay. But the thing is about God and the worshiping is that worshiping is not something out of fear. It's actually the highest level of love.
I know.
And if somebody,
I never said
yeah,
it
if
had to be out of
somebody,
fear. I don't
yeah,
think that it would be quote unquote genuine if it was out of fear.
if somebody brings you to life, well, why not love him, right? Like, and the thing is that once you actually start worshiping him and love him and, do what he wants you to do, like the laws and the rules in Islam, for example, and the prayer, you actually end up being happy, you actually end up being successful because you're going to be avoiding a lot of the things that can mess up your life. Like, for example, I'll give you a simple example. Like in Islam, you can't have sex before marriage, right? So
Right.
I'm a simple guy, I like to think of things logically and simple. If 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 you keep going and having sex with women before marriage, right? You can end up with getting a child, right? And that child will not be grown up between two parents, a mother and a father, because that was just.
Why not?
So if you keep
Wait, why
doing this,
not? Why?
keep doing this,
Simply because they're not married doesn't mean that the child won't have a mother and father.
I agree, yes, 100%. But what is the probability of this child getting grown up, being raised up with no mother and no father, and being ended up like a bad kid, As a society,
Why
if
does
you
that
have
mean
a
they'll
lot
be a
of,
bad kid?
what does it mean?
Why do you think that means they'll be a bad kid?
Because you need balance when you raise up a child. You need balance, basically. You need a mother and a father, because if you make a kid like a male kid, okay, grow up just with him. Wait a second, stay with me.
It'll be interesting to see where this is going. Hey Nick, how you doing? I saw your comment.
Give me a second. I'll get back to you, brother. Okay,
For
you
sure,
can
sure. You
drop.
you can come on back whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
All right. So I usually don't talk to Muslims too much. Not because I don't want to, but simply because I haven't finished reading the Quran. Though I have gotten mostly through it. I think I have just a few more books left. It's like the last quarter of the book left. But we didn't get to a few things that I would have liked to gotten to. But Islam says you can start beating kids at age 7. Oof. Yeah, I think the thing with Islam is the whole like scientific miracles in the Quran. Okay, I need to be shown that, but also we can see that there are scientific inaccuracies in the Quran. I don't think that it makes sense. I don't think it makes sense that there is a good and just God that actively deceives certain people and chooses certain people to be deceived. And as our friend admitted, that there is no free will because whatever will you have is going to be trumped by whatever will is of God. So you have a will, but it's not free. And then he asked me a question like, why not love, the one that gave you life? It's because it depends on who they are. Just because someone gave you life doesn't mean that they deserve your love. All right, we're gonna go in order. I think Sathiam was here. Hey, how you doing? Oh, okay. Oh, I guess our other guys went away. Anyway, hello everyone. How you guys doing? Um, this is my first live in quite a while. I figured if TikTok's going away, I may as well get as many lives in while I can, since now we're on a clock, right? Yeah, probably. But yeah, so if you like having these conversations, if you know people that like having these conversations, and you are a Christian or a Bible believer, no, Seth, I can't hear you. Please send a request, share the live, share the live with people who like having these kind of conversations. The Bible, is it true, and how do we know? Evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. Seth, I'm gonna drop you, and then you can try to re-request. See what happens. And then, what's wrong with LGBT plus? And then, how can Christians not be pro-choice? So for me, I'm a Christian turned atheist. I was a Christian for many years, and through a very unwanted and long process, I ended up becoming an atheist. There's still some. Sorry, need to get a drink of water. 1 second. All right, much better. Anyway, but yeah, so I like having these kind of conversations. I think they're great to have, especially with people that don't have the same perspective as me, or people that have, you know, better knowledge of certain subjects than I do. I think that it's great to try to learn something new every day, and at the very least, try to understand where the other person's coming from, and hopefully they'll be able to understand where I'm coming from as well. That's right. Clearly, I turned my back on God. But yeah, so the Bible, is it true, and how do we know? My current position on this is that I don't know if it's true. I think that maybe aspects of it could be, and I'm talking about maybe more beyond like the, there's a person or a place that was mentioned that was real and stuff. Cool, yeah. I'm talking about like I am perfectly fine with the idea that there is a supernatural and that there is gods and stuff. I think that'd be super cool. I just don't have any reason to believe it's true. But if that stuff was true, and some of the stuff from the Bible was accurate, that'd be cool. If the Bible was 100% accurate, then I think that I wouldn't be too happy with that, because I think that there are some issues with the consistency of the God character, as well as the means for salvation, and even what we were talking about with our Muslim friend earlier, the whole free will aspect. Same thing applies to Christians as well. God's will always trump human will, and the Bible is very clear that God chooses and gives us the gift of faith, and that is necessary in order to be saved. So it doesn't seem like it's really your choice when it comes down to it. Then evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. I'm sure many people are aware that the Bible talks about, Paul mentions that if the resurrection of Jesus isn't true, that basically the Christian faith is garbage. Repent! Repent! Oh gosh. I like randomly shouting that with my coworkers. We're all like in our different levels of deconstruction, so like sometimes we just have fun. We just like to shout out, "Repent, sinner!" But
I hope it works this time. I just restarted, so
yes, I can hear you very well. How are you?
nice. I'm well, brother. I'm an atheist, so not an op.
Yeah, I assumed, but you seemed like you
Gotcha.
had some insights, so I wanted to let you
Yeah, yeah.
share some stuff.
Uh, Fun fact: I actually have never read the full Quran, but the thing is, you don't need to, because each ruling is independent of any. They always yell context. Be it schmeck slavery or child grape, or a calling for the unalivement of all the non-believers. But if you look at the text, they tell you explicitly. The whole Quran says that each of the commands are independent and standing for all time. So what does the context matter? I don't understand their fallback. One of their complaints, amongst many complaints. Although, to be honest with you, Muslims have had the weakest. I can't even call them apologetics. They usually just cry and run and like curse you and do whataboutery. I can't seem to pin them down on anything. So
Yeah, and like I said, I haven't had too much experience
yeah,
talking with Muslims as well, but I do want to, but it's something that I don't want to engage with too much until I actually finish reading the whole thing, because I think it's only
sure,
fair,
fair enough.
like.
Fair enough. Yeah,
But I think that there are lots of things in here that are extremely repetitive, but at the same time are just very just a little bit too vague to where you can kind of have it say whatever you want, and then some of the things that are so direct just seem absolutely ridiculous. I
absolutely.
don't
Yeah,
understand how people say that I read this and it made sense, and then every single surah starts out with what is it? Hold on, it's in the name of God, the most gracious and
in the
most
name,
merciful.
yeah.
But that doesn't make any sense when we're talking about a being that is going to intentionally deceive people so that they end up in destruction forever, and that you're not supposed to feel pity or remorse for them because somehow it's their fault, even though God put them in that position and made them that way. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Did you get to the verse where you'll be ass graped with the 72 cubit foot iron chain coming in up your bum and out of your mouth in hell?
I have not, no, but
Yeah. So it's like a.
but don't threaten me with a
fantasy.
good time,
Also, coming to the free will point, there's the problem with Islam is like there's also a lot of So, hey, what's up, Brett?
Yo, what's going on, brother?
Oh, good, man. Are you religious?
I believe in God, but I'm not a Christian.
What God do you believe in?
Gotcha.
I just believe in the God that created the universe. That's it.
So more of like a deistic approach?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Alright, I got you. Well, I'm looking to more talk to people with more pinpoint religious view.
Yeah.
I do think that the Bible, I can prove the Bible is false.
Yeah, we can too.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're not a Christian.
I feel pretty solid about that too. Yeah. We're not Christians, either one of us, so we're
I'd
looking
like to demonstrate one point for you, even though you're not, here's something you can bring up to other Christians. If you don't, I'll bring it up for you. Like, if you look at Deuteronomy 22, right?
Mm-hmm.
It talks about in there that it says if a woman is a virgin and they get married and the man is not pleased after they have sex and she doesn't bleed.
Watch the language.
Oh, my bad. Is that bad language? My bad. But,
yeah, just so after they engage and there's no blood, yeah.
Right, there's no blood. They can stone her to death.
Mm-hmm.
But we know from statistics now that only about 40% of women actually bleed after their first sexual encounter.
Yeah, it's a little less than half. Actually, fun fact, when I was 19, I ended up getting a part-time job at an adult store, if you know what I mean. And it was a very nice place run by these very, very sweet ladies. But, here I am, this, very sheltered, don't know anything about that kind of stuff Christian boy, ending up going into this, 18, 19 years old. And they taught me a lot of stuff having to do with how things are supposed to be. I grew up with a very, not really knowing how things are supposed to be, but I remember this passage, and I remember the bleeding. And I remember being blown away when these women were telling me, like, that's actually not really supposed to happen. With the proper care, lubrication, foreplay, things like that, that's the bleeding isn't supposed to be there. And the reason why it's so common is because in the past, many cultures have been very male dominated and just taking what they want and not caring about what, or how the woman feels in that moment and stuff, or not caring about her comfort. And so therefore there's bleeding.
Well, so that means in the past, maybe it was a higher percentage.
What do you mean?
So if it's 40% now, it might have been a higher percentage back then.
So are you trying to support the verse and saying
No,
that...
I'm not. I'm saying it's still a bullshit.
All right, yeah.
I'm just saying, if we're going to be accurate, we have to try to be as accurate as possible because we believe in the truth.
Sure, we can definitely do that, but unless someone can demonstrate that biologically speaking, the biology of women were so different back then that 100%.
But it still was not 100%.
We can't say that this is a good and just ruling,
Right. I'm saying, no matter what the percentage was, it's still not 100%.
Yes, I agree.
And so the fact that they have a law that says you're going to stone a woman to death who could have been an innocent woman and married a man, and you're still going to stone her to death. Like, no matter what the percentage is, that's a bullshit law. So, I don't
Well,
think any
I'm glad that we
Christian-
can all agree that that's a very shitty law, and that no good and just being would ever advocate for such a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks a lot for that tip, Brett. And it's a very good point to bring up when people like to say that the Bible is like scientifically and biologically accurate. You know, it's definitely one of those passages you can point out and say, well, if God is our creator and he's perfect, shouldn't he know how human biology works?
Yeah, you wouldn't allow an innocent woman who loved her man and married a man, and then she gets stoned to death as a result, even if she was a virgin. It's so crazy. It's so insane. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't think of anything more insane than that.
Well, unfortunately, I think the Bible gives us a few other examples that might be equal or a little bit worse than that. It's kind of scary, but yeah, thank you for coming up and bringing up that point, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right, and yeah, there's a lot of concerning passages or verses in Deuteronomy 22. So lots of the beginning books of the Bible have that ick vibe when it comes to how people are treating other people. Thank you everyone for the likes. Thank you all for the shares. I am debating maybe doing a restart. I'm not quite sure. Like I said, this is my first live in a while, so might just do that. I like having these because I feel like it's a little less it's a little bit more open, and it's more of a conversation point, but I do have a couple of other topics that are more pinpointed. Of course I have I focus more on the number 4 one. How can Christians not be pro-choice? I have one that's more focused on that one. I also have, of course, does the Bible support slavery? I know that conversation's been getting popular again on here. Giga, how you doing? Hey Jesse, how are you?
Sorry, I was finishing this message. How are you doing, preacher? I haven't seen you in a minute.
Yeah, no, I know. It's been a minute. But I heard that they're gonna take away TikTok, so I figured I may as well jump on here and
Yeah, pretty much.
get as much time as possible. So
I hear you.
how
I
you
took
been?
some time off for a little bit. We worked on the podcast some, but I think we're not doing it anymore. So it is what it is. But I've been doing okay. I'm on this side of the dirt at least.
Yeah, and that's already a win, We got a guy named Kareem. I'm assuming that he's...
Oh, let me get ready to be cooked. I'll go on mute.
Yo,
Hey, how's it going?
chillin'. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm assuming not Christian.
Well, let's not try to do that. Try to divide people based on. You don't even believe in a God, right? So why would you even care about which God I believe in?
Do you believe in a God?
Of course. Why
Okay,
wouldn't I?
What God do you believe in?
There's only one God, sir. But here,
Which God is that?
I know you want to control the conversation. You can try to do that.
I'm just
I'll let
asking
you do that.
questions. I'm just
No,
asking
I get it.
questions.
It's fine. But you're asking a lot of questions. But I just came here to ask you one question. Who do you serve, sir?
What do you mean by who do I serve?
You serve someone. You serve yourself. You serve the government. You serve the people. You serve the world.
I would say if you're trying to make me answer something like that, I'd say I try to serve those around me.
Okay. Well, I serve God. So, I mean, at the
Okay,
end of the day,
what God?
you want to pick. There's only one God, bro. Let me ask you
You're
this.
being very vague with
No, I'm not.
your
No, I'm
answers.
not. You serve
Are you
people.
gonna answer the questions on the topic?
Who is your God?
Listen, these people are not gonna help you on your last breath.
Okay.
So
I'm actually
these people,
literally a
you're not
nerd,
gonna
so I'm
remember
not.
those people in the grave. You're not gonna take them with you. The only person you're gonna take with you to the grave is yourself.
Okay.
So you're gonna meet your maker. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
So
Okay.
okay, Kareem, here, are you ashamed to tell me the name of your God?
Why would I be ashamed?
Because you're not doing it, and I've asked you multiple times.
I'm trying to have a conversation with you. You know, intellectual conversation, right?
Yeah,
Based
yeah,
on
and
rational.
everything that you've brought up has, okay, cool. What does that have to do with anything?
It has to do a lot because you live for nothing.
Well, that's not
You
true.
live for yourself. You live by what people tell you to do. You basically suck dick for a living. That's what you do.
And I'm sorry, you live by what? Something that you can't prove? An imaginary friend?
You could say that, but hey, I'd rather die a man fearing God than a coward.
What makes you
Listen,
think that?
right.
What makes you think I'm a coward because I don't have a God belief?
Because you have no principles, you have no values, you have no culture.
I have
you
principles.
nothing.
I have values.
You live for nothing.
Why
You
do
live
you
by
make
what
these
people tell you to
assumptions
do.
about me?
You need people's validations to be who you are.
And I don't give a shit about people's validations.
Okay. You just say you serve people. That's who you serve. That's the reward.
Yes,
you
yes.
get.
If I see someone in need, I want to help them. I care about my fellow man. I want to
The
take
best way
care
to
of
do
the
that.
needy.
How do you do it?
I
How do you
want
care
to.
about others? How do you help others?
Yes, I give to charity. I also donate
No.
clothes. I help.
How can you really be a help
He's
to
literally
society?
telling you.
How
You
can
have to be quiet and let him finish.
Do you think that helping
I'm trying to
hungry
I'm
people
gonna answer
get
his question
food
because
is
he
not
seems not to
helpful? Kareem, do you think that helping hungry
help
people get
yourself
food is not
first
helpful?
before you try to help anyone else, buddy.
I'm in a very good position. I don't know what you're talking about. What do I need to help myself with?
Yeah, probably all from God's money. That's what I'm saying. He said he blessed you and you take advantage by putting him down.
Look, if
Instead
God is
of,
real,
give thanks to him.
if God is real, I want to know, and if God is blessing me
He
with
is
money,
real.
I
I'm
would
telling
love
you
to
he is.
know.
He's a coward.
So how can you help me figure out if this God is real or not?
Okay, do you believe you created yourself or that you came from nothing?
No and no.
Exactly. So you obviously there's a creator. You came from someone.
No,
And you're here
I
for a
don't know how
reason.
that gets us to obviously there's a creator,
Obviously
and I
there
don't
is.
know
You
how a
came, you
creator
didn't
gets
come
us
on
to
your
God.
own. I'll tell you because
Okay.
everything.
So
has a
so
source.
instead of just asking me the questions, why don't you just explain it?
God is the common source for all information and knowledge, and your being.
Okay, can you demonstrate that to be true?
Yeah. Where do you come from?
My parents.
Okay, that's a rabbit hole. You're gonna take yourself.
I come from a biological process that happens when two humans engage in reproductive activities.
Right. And where did they come from, or did they create themselves, or
They also come from a biological process that comes from natural reproduction.
Okay, what about them? So they came from their parents, right? Or did they just come from this process?
Where are we trying to get to? Are you saying that?
I want you to admit.
Are you trying to say? Are you trying to get me to admit that we came out of
yourself.
nothing because God just magicked us into
I want
existing?
you to say it. I want you to say it because that's what you really believe. Even though you're not willing to admit that because you're ashamed of it.
What do you
Because
think
know
I
it's not
believe?
true.
What do you think I believe? Because
I
you've
don't
been
know.
wrong so far about
I
everything.
don't know what you believe. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay, well, I don't believe that we
It's not
came from
your belief.
nothing. That's what you believe.
You
Listen,
still haven't
don't
told us
have-
what you believe
serve
either,
people,
though.
sir. You showed me already who I'm talking to based on what you said. You serve people. You live for nothing. You came from nothing. You will be nothing.
You're gonna answer the questions now.
Literally, nothing didn't say any of that, and you have yet to.
All right, I'm sorry, not nothing.
You
but
you have
biological
yet to
process.
stand up and actually
means
tell
nothing.
me who your God is.
He's scared.
God is the creator.
Honestly, yeah, he
Allah
must be
subhanahu wa ta'ala
scared.
is
He must be
creator
ashamed of his God if he's not going to
I'm
tell
not
me who his
ashamed.
God
You're
is.
Sounds like God.
Who's
Sounds
your
like
God?
God's impotent.
Who's your God, Kareem?
There's only one God.
Who is
Sounds
it?
pretty impotent. Where's he at right now?
Do you not know? Do
All around,
you know God, but you don't know who God is? Come on,
I know who God is.
you're embarrassing yourself, Kareem. Who is your God?
You know him too, but you just forget. So I'm here to
Who?
remind you.
What? Who?
The
Are
one
you
who
a
made
Christian,
you.
Kareem? Because I was a Christian. Are you trying to say the Christian God is real?
There's only one God, bro.
Is it Jesus?
Christians do not believe Jesus is God. Real Christians don't.
Yes, they believe that Jesus is God.
Let me ask you a question. Why do
You're
they?
ashamed of your God. You're
Why do you
protecting-
think that? Why do you think that Christians believe that? Are you a Christian?
I used to be a Christian. Do you
Does that make
not?
you a Christian?
Can you not
Just because you
read?
used to be a Christian, does that make you a Christian or the representation of the whole religion?
Ew.
No. Did I
Certified
ever
to be
say it
speaking
did?
about that? Exactly. So
Did
let me
I
ask you
ever
a
say it
question.
did?
Do you think that the Messiah or a messenger
We
of
haven't
God
answered
used
any of
God?
his questions yet.
Yeah, Kareem, you need to start
You
having
don't
an
even
honest
know. You
conversation
don't
with me,
even
or
have
I
his
will
own
drop
beliefs
you.
figured out, but he
And
wants to tell you what you got.
I don't like doing that, Kareem. I don't like dropping people, but I will if you don't actually engage in a conversation.
Well, I'm
Now
talking to two
we've had our
people right now.
fun.
We got that crackhead in the back. You know what I'm
We've had
saying?
our
Backing
You'll
fun.
up.
be alright. You'll be alright. Shush.
We've had our fun. So I want you to answer the question: Who is your God?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, so you're a Muslim.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that. I mean, but other than the fact that you're
I
trying to divide, your
I
intention
didn't say
is
that there
that
was
you're trying to
anything wrong with that. I just want to know
divide
who I'm
people.
talking to.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that you should have known a long time ago. Muslims, Jews, and Christians believe in the same God, one God. I don't know if you
They
believe
believe
that.
in extremely different interpretations
That's not true.
of the stem god, of a older Canaanite god.
That's not true.
Yes, yes.
No.
Yahweh originally started off as
You're
a
not a
Canaanite
Christian, so
storm
you
and
don't
war
get to speak
god.
for Christians. You don't get to speak for Christians.
I'm not speaking for Christians. I'm just talking about historical facts.
No, you speak by yourself for yourself. That's how you
No,
represent.
I'm
Just like
talking
how I
about
speak,
historical
I don't
facts,
speak for my
Kareem.
religion, or I don't represent anything but myself. I'm talking about what I know, what I believe. I don't think I represent my country or my family or my religion or my culture.
I'm not judging your culture or your family or your religion
Well,
based on what
when
you
you
say.
try
I
to
don't
put me
care.
in a category,
I'm
you know,
trying to find out
Christian
what
or
you
Muslim, or
believe,
you're
but
trying to
you're
make it seem
not. But
like
you're
that
avoiding it.
everybody doesn't agree
He
that there's one
obviously
God.
believes his Allah is impotent. Right about now.
Yeah,
Seems like it.
honestly, he's just embarrassing himself, and if his God is true, then I hope that his God is embarrassed too, because goddamn, like.
Well, I
Well,
hope that
Kareem,
God
thank you so much
make
for your
God drop
time. I
the.
appreciate it. You can come up later.
Sorry for meeting him at first. I haven't been here in a while.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I try my best to just not mute people unless they're saying threats or anything like that. I don't.
You know I'm
I don't
used
get
to the
that.
men in these types of spaces. Like I don't just let them show their butt.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as they're not saying any slurs or threats, I let them expose themselves. If they want to scream, they can show that they're being childish. But let's see. We have.
May God drop the roof over your head, top of your head, God willing.
Cool. Have a good day, Kareem. Hey, Jesus Saves. How are you?
Good, you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Are you over 18?
Yes, I'm 22.
Perfect. And
He was on Amadeus' panel with me last night. Hey, Jesus.
Hi, how are you, Jesse?
I'm good.
That's good.
awesome. And then, anything specific that you want to talk about? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
1 sec, I'm gonna flush the toilet, sorry.
And then I know that we have Bluebird and Mullet in the queue as well. I don't know if you guys are Christians. If you guys are Christians, please let me know in the comments. I'll let you up. And Seth, if they are Christians, I'll let you up too. I just don't want there to be too uneven of a side.
Yeah, he's being Antonio. Excuse me, go this way. Thank you. Okay, so the Bible. I believe the Bible is true. That's just my belief. And as far as the LGBTQ community, I don't personally, as a Christian, believe that that there's anything wrong with them. I feel that everyone has a right to do what they would like, because I mean, at the end of the day, we have free will. We can do whatever we please. And I believe that we as humans don't have the right to judge nor to condemn others for for what they do. Like, I feel that's wrong. And as Christians, I feel like a lot of people, this is why I don't specify the part of the Bible. I'm so confused at why.
Don't worry about the comments. It's all right. You just.
Okay, so the reason why I believe that the Bible is true, because, I mean, there's so many stories in it that make a lot of sense to, like, what's happened in the real world and what's going on. Like, I feel that we're living in a time of where, like, the book of Revelations, like, we're living in a time of where things are, going wrong, and that Jesus will be coming soon to reveal himself and to show that he is real, and that, he is, like, I feel that, that's just my personal belief. I feel that, from what I've been through personally, I feel that, I feel like people like to, say, oh, God's not real because of the fact that he lets evil things happen. God doesn't let evil things happen. The enemy himself, okay. So in my opinion, I feel that the enemy himself likes to make us believe that, okay, it's God's fault for everything that happens, and that, he's a deceiver. So, like, oh yeah, go ahead, Jesse. I don't know if
Finish. I wasn't trying to interrupt you.
Oh,
I was just gonna ask if you could give me an example of an evil thing. You said that he won't let evil things happen. What kind of evil things?
Yeah, I too was that too caught my attention, because I think that saying that God doesn't allow evil things, it depends on in what way you mean by that. But I also feel like that's also limiting God to a certain degree. So what exactly do you mean by evil?
Okay, so I know that a lot, for example, me as a Christian, I'm a new Christian, and that I feel that, I don't know everything, but I, bless you. I feel that, that, basically, oh, it's so hard to explain. Basically, what I'm getting at is that I feel that, us as humans aren't meant to understand everything, especially people like to twist, I feel like, the Bible and what Jesus and God have done, the bad things, but then there's so much bad happening in the world, right? And that, nobody is blaming the enemy for those bad things, because they're well, God's the most powerful, so why would he allow that to happen? So as in evil things, what I mean is people like to bring up things that happen to innocent children, or things that, just wars and everything else, right? The thing is I believe that, God is still powerful despite him, even though he doesn't, in a sense, come down and stop it. At the end of the day, he will reveal himself. He will reveal himself and say, I was here the whole time, despite what everyone may have said or thought. And I feel that okay, let's say he were to come down here right now and stop all the evil, right? And, just stop just the evil itself, not not take away the evil people, but just stop the evil itself. I feel like, that as a whole, that wouldn't stop the people. At the end of the day, we still have free will. Even if you took away all the evil, it's still, people still want to do their own agenda, because that's just how it is, because God gave us free will. So at the end of the day, he could take away all the evil in the world. That's not going to really, in my opinion, change anything, because people are still going to do what they would please, because they believe that's the right thing in the way.
Okay, all right. I want to put a pin in that for now. I do want to say hello to Mullet and Road Warrior too, and I do want to confirm real quick. Both of you guys are Christian, right?
Yes, sir. Born and raised.
Okay, and you're over 18?
Yes.
Yep, 22.
Awesome. Road Warrior over 18?
46.
Perfect. Love it. Awesome. And what do you guys have to say of anything that you've heard from Jesus Saves or me, Jesse, or anything on the background? I'd like to try to open up the conversation to all of us. However, I feel like I'm going to let just one more person up, and then that's it. No more people, because I want to have us to have a conversation versus everyone just talking over each other. So.
For sure. I guess I just joined the live, so I don't have too much context into what's going on. So
sure. Do you have any thoughts of anything on the background then?
The background, pretty much, there. I would say 1, 2, and 3. I got pretty confident answers for.
All right. Cool. Is there any that you would really like to answer?
Yeah. I would probably number 2. It's probably my strong suit. We do know that there was at least 500 eyewitnesses that seen the resurrection of Jesus. Sure. Is that pure evidence? No, but 500 eyewitnesses is good secondary evidence.
Okay, so you think that the best evidence for the resurrection of Jesus is the multiple eyewitnesses mentioned?
Yep, the eyewitnesses mentioned, and also the people who preached to their death, very brutal deaths.
Okay, specifically about the resurrection?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then, Road Warrior, is there anything specific that you wanted to address before we moved on, or anything in the back that you wanted to answer?
Well, I did just get up in here too, and I would just like to say that I have an answer for every single thing that you have there.
Okay, all right. Well, I think I think the resurrection evidence is a pretty solid one. So Mola thinks that the eyewitnesses and the testimonies of the martyrs is good evidence for the resurrection. What about you, Road Warrior? Do you agree with that, or do you think that there's better evidence?
Well, when you're talking about evidence, faith is what you have. If you're looking for evidence as far as seeing right now in the time that we live in, you're not going to find it. So you have to read the Word of God, and faith comes by hearing the Word of God. You understand?
Okay, so you think that the best evidence for the resurrection is just your faith?
Well, that is evidence in and of itself.
I don't believe it is actually. I see faith as the absence of evidence, because if you have evidence, then there's no need to have faith. Faith is the belief in something without the good cause for it. Whereas if you believe something because you have solid evidence for it, that you have a more likelihood of it actually being factual.
Well, yes, that is true. But what I'm saying is that with my faith, I don't need the evidence because I believe. I step out in faith, and when I read scripture, as Jesus says, he is the way, the truth, and the life, and I look around at the rest of the world and I study every single other would-be religion or would-be God and everything else, and I come back to the God who created the heaven and the earth, it makes complete sense to me. It is truth. It just sits inside of you, resonates inside of you, and you know that it's true.
Can I ask a question? Well, I think it's strange that you'll study every religion around you, but not different evidence, like maybe like a science book or something that's changed in the world around you.
Well, that's a good question, because God doesn't change. And there is no other religion in this world that claims to have created heaven and earth.
Oh, there's lots of religions
Yes.
that have creation stories.
So a lot of them that have this one, at least maybe not in the same fashion, but that's created the heaven and earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
And then
that's
some.
false.
Yeah, like Norse paganism has a creation story. Greek mythology has creation stories. Islam has a creation story. Lots of older myths also have creation stories. I believe
We
even
didn't study their other religions.
Hinduism has a creation story.
The Abrahamic religions, I believe, at least I know Judaism and Christians. I don't know. I'm not sure on Muslims, but I know Judaism and Christianity believe in the same creation.
Oh.
Okay, if you want to go down that road,
to a certain degree, because I think even that there are some Christians that disagree. Some Christians will take like God-assisted evolution, while others will say, no, absolutely not. It was a literal 24-hour day, and these are the order of events that things happen. So not even Christians will all agree with each other on the order of creation and how it all worked.
I don't
Sure,
think.
maybe not
doesn't
word for
mean
word.
anything. That
No.
just simply means that the other people are not rooted and grounded in the foundation. Jesus Christ is the only one that died on the cross and rose again from the grave.
Okay,
No
and
one else has
Allah is
ever
the only
done
one who
that.
did his
Period.
things, and there's other gods who's the only one who did their things. I don't think you studied other religions like you said you did.
Okay, so here's
There's
the thing. You're not going to disprove God by your intellect. It's not going to happen.
Well, I am. I
Well,
don't
God
believe
is
in them.
well,
I can.
actually,
so
okay.
Road
I
Warrior.
cannot
so
believe
the
in
thing
them.
is I feel like not to interrupt everybody, but I
No, go
feel
ahead.
like it's all about, like yes, it is about faith when walking not by sight but by faith. I feel that, like it's kind of like you got like all of us believe that we breathe air, but then there'll be some people out in the world that literally think no, we're just human, like we breathe anyways. Or you'll tell them no, we're breathing air, but then they're like, well, prove it. I don't see it. I don't feel it.
But air is
Like you'll feel the
demonstratable.
wind, huh?
But
We
we
can
can
measure it.
demonstrate air. We can measure it. We can even get the oxygen molecules even isolated to the point where we can make like oxygen tanks and stuff like that. We understand how lungs work. And this is over centuries and centuries of medical practices from all these different cultures and us understanding how the human body works. We can demonstrate how air is around us as well as how we interact with it. But we don't have anything like that to show for there's such a thing as a God, and this is what and who they
On
Well,
the
what
are.
about like
contrary, that does
miracles?
show God because that does not disprove God one bit.
Yeah,
You're
So wait, Road Warrior. I'm not trying to disprove God. I'm saying I don't know if God exists, and I haven't seen anything convincing to show me that God is real.
so what about like miracles? Like, do you
the
believe
thing
that
about
just
it is,
happens, like kind of like just because, or like because, like I'm just asking like a genuine question.
I don't think miracles exist because the way that I see miracles is miracles are the intentional suspension of the laws of physics or logic in order for something else to happen. So,
Okay,
for
that's
example,
good.
like God speaking, and then all of a sudden there was light in creation. That would be a miracle. God making the sun stand in the sky so that the Israelites would have a longer day and see in battle. That is a miracle. That is a suspension of the laws of physics, the laws of logic, and stuff like that, in order for something intentional and something else to happen.
Right. Okay.
So and as far as I'm aware, that's never happened. So I don't believe in miracles.
well, God is outside of space and time. God created the heaven and the earth. He is outside of space and time, and he is above your intellect and comprehension. You cannot comprehend him
So
completely.
I'm very interested in that answer because he's outside of space and time and stuff like that. What does that mean, and how do you know that's even possible?
Well, let's look at it this way. You make a computer, okay? You didn't come from inside that computer and
Sure.
then just pop out of it and then turn around and look at the computer and go, wow, I made that computer. I just came out of the computer and I made it.
But
God is
but
out.
I am still subject to space and time, just a different version of that space and time.
Right, because
So
you are
so
not God.
so okay, so you agree that maybe in some other realm or dimension, God is subject to time and space, but
No,
just not our version of time and space.
God is eternal, and he does not change. He is the creator, and we can't
That doesn't
comprehend
address
that.
my question.
What is your question?
Would it not be fair to say that God is subject to time and space, just not our version of time and space? Because we're inside the universe He created, and He's outside of it, but He is subject to time and space. And I think the reason why this, needs to be addressed, and I think the reason why this makes sense, is because where is God? Yes, He's everywhere, but that everywhere involves space, and then in order for God to create, that involves time. You need time in order for there to be a creation, because that involves change. So God definitely does
That
have His own time and space. It's just not our time
no,
and
that
space.
is okay. So that is contrary to what it means to be eternal. In eternity, there is no such thing as time. It continues and continues and continues and never has an ending point ever.
I
It's
agree that the
eternity.
existence of
It's
God
eternal.
could be
Okay,
could
so
be
now
like
let's
that,
just listen, please. Can you
but God
just listen
does.
for a minute? I would like to be able to speak for more than just a second, and you cutting me off. I really want to drive a point home.
Waiting on you.
But before I continue, I just want to say this: is going back and forth about God and all this stuff that we're talking about, is that going to be beneficial to anyone in here in convincing you whether God exists or not? Or are
It
we
could
just
be.
having a debate back and forth and just trying to stimulate each other's minds and just whatever and hear what people have to say and blah, 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 blah? Are you really interested in learning about the Lord Jesus?
I'll
And
tell you.
him
I'll tell you
who
this,
created
Road
the heaven
Warrior.
and the earth?
If God is real, I want to know the truth. I want to believe in true things. And if I'm convinced that God is real, I'm more than happy to accept that. But I can't lie and say that I believe something if I don't actually believe it.
Okay, so then that comes back to the fact that you have to step outside of yourself and your own mind and your own logic and your own and whatever else, understanding that you didn't make yourself, you didn't make the earth, you didn't make the elements, nothing. So then
Sure.
you just step back and you say, okay, since I did not do any of this, where am I from? So then you go, okay, question God. Where
Do
are
I
you
need
there,
to
God?
do I need to go down the path of where did I come from in order to find God?
No. What I'm saying is, if you really truly want to know God, first of all, pick up King James Bible and start reading it.
Oh, I've read the King James
Yeah.
Bible. I have like 5 of them.
And if you're ready to lay down your pride and understand that, you need a savior, then call upon the name of the Lord to be saved.
So,
And the Holy
here's the
Spirit,
thing.
if you're
I
true-
will, but I need to
Okay.
understand
Right.
that. You said something very important just now. That if I can understand that I need a savior, that's the key thing. I don't understand that I need a savior. I'm trying to see how that is true.
The reason it's true that you need a savior is because you are a sinner. And if you don't realize that you're a sinner, then you will never call out to the name of call out to be saved.
How do I know that sin is real?
Because of your conscience.
And sin is real because there's so many evil things happening in the world that is sin, and it also happened in the Bible as well.
So sin is transgression against the laws of God. And again, if I don't know if there's a God, I don't know if there's a God to quote unquote sin against. How could I possibly be a sinner if we don't know if there's a God?
Are you aware of your conscience?
I have a conscience, yes, but your conscience and my conscience probably aren't the same. They're not the same with everyone else's. So clearly, our conscience is not a reliable example to show a good, consistent God trying to tell us what's right and wrong.
On the contrary, it is. It doesn't matter whose conscience is what. You still have a conscience, and you know right from wrong. But
we don't agree.
Well, it doesn't matter.
There are people that think it's okay to touch children.
Right.
That have no problem with that.
Yeah, so
But
this is
I think it's wrong. So there we have two people. So there we have an example of two people's consciousness that do not agree. One thinks it's fine. One does not. You can't say that this is a gift from.
Has seared their conscience.
okay. Geez, I thought this panel's getting a lot deeper than I thought it would be. But so we're making the argument here between moral objectivity and moral subjectivity. Am I correct? We're talking about the idea that our morals are basically written on us on our heart by God versus society, social norms, and things like that predict our morals.
Well, I think it's because he's trying to say that, yeah, in a way, because he's trying to say that us having a conscience is evidence of God, because our conscience is God's gift to tell us, what's right and what's wrong. And I'm saying that it seems to be very unreliable then.
Because it can vary amongst person to person.
That still doesn't disprove God. All that means.
I never said it does. I'm just saying that.
Because those people are very.
All it means.
They listen to their
finish,
flesh.
please.
They don't deny their flesh.
All it means is that let's say, okay, for me personally, obviously, I know that it's wrong to schmurder. Okay, so somebody else, like a serial schmurderer,
everyone thinks it's wrong to schmurder,
and take 20 lives. That person has literally seared their conscience to that point to where they don't even listen to the voice in their head that says, hey, dude, no, you know that's wrong. Do not do that. Just like, hey, you ought not to be lying. Or, hey, you shouldn't be going into the grocery store and stealing 100 items and running out in the grocery cart into your car and driving off like a crazy person. It
Yes,
Okay.
Jesse.
I had a question.
Yeah,
Road.
Let's go, Jesse, and then Tim Mullen.
Okay. Road. Is it ever okay to lie?
lying is not okay, no.
Ever?
No.
So if I had Anne Frank in my attic and they came looking for her, should I tell them where she's at if they ask?
That is absolutely completely different from
A lie.
just
No, it's a lie.
if you're gonna try to trap me, it's not gonna work.
I'm
You're
not.
gonna
I'm
trap
giving
me.
you an example of how it can be subjective and how it can vary from person to person, situation to situation.
Okay, lying is lying. Period.
So
Okay.
shouldn't lie about it.
What about Rahab, who lied to save the lives of the Hebrew spies? God blessed her for what she did. Are you
This is
saying
true,
that that was wrong?
but don't
Are you saying
take
that
it
it
out
was
of
a sin and
context.
that God blessed a sin?
Don't take it out of context. If you take it out of context, then you're gonna get all twisted
We're
up.
not taking it out of context. That's why we're saying it's subjective and it depends on the situation whether lying is okay or not. And we're saying in that situation it was okay. Even God said it was okay because while thou shalt not lie, to protect the lives of the people of God and the spies that were in the city, a lie was told and God blessed the woman who told the lie.
So exactly what is your point, and what is your point?
The point is that that this is all subjective. So so if you're trying to say that our conscience is evidence for your God because your God is telling us what's right and wrong through our conscience, then we're trying to say that it seems to be very unreliable because it differs person to person, situation to situation, and it can be different per different people
God is not
at the same
condoning
time.
the lie. Okay, God does not condone the lie, if that's what you're wondering. The Bible makes it very clear. Let every man be a liar. Bottom line. So lying is still a sin. It doesn't matter. He's not condoning it. He's not rewarding it.
Okay,
He's
so
not
God
saying,
bless the lie.
congratulations, you've lied and you went
Right.
against me.
Okay, so God bless the lie. Okay, Mullet, you are next.
This is bless
You
the
wanted to
lie.
say something?
You're taking it out of context.
I mean, I can make. I guess I don't know what we're arguing about anymore. So we're talking about consciousness and how this proves God. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that we do have objective morals that are written on our hearts.
Okay.
You know, I only come from this from the standpoint of, sure, you know, we are sinful and there are people out there who have completely rejected God. And I'll use the Pharaoh story when the Israelites were enslaved. You know, he hardened his heart, and people can harden their hearts to the point where they don't have those written morals in their hearts anymore. You know, that is what we call blasphemy, or blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. But I would argue that we do have written objective morals in our hearts. We know murder is wrong. We know grape is wrong.
Would
matter
you
the
agree that not
situation or
everyone
scenario.
does? Would you agree that not everyone holds those morals, though? That there are people who grow up and never think that it's wrong to force themselves on somebody, or that there are people who don't think it's wrong to take someone's life?
There are people who probably do. I don't think you could grow up as a small child with those intentions unless you've hardened your heart, or you've hardened your heart to the point where you don't, those objective morals no longer have a standing in your conscience. So you wouldn't have, you know what I mean? Like, maybe, you know, you could argue for your side, you could argue, well, mental illness, right? Is that proof of the hardening of the heart? You know, I can't say that for sure. But I would say
I would hope not, because we know that could be genetic, and I think that it would be absolutely outrageous of a good and just God to have reprobate minds be genetic.
Right,
Well,
right. We are a fallen and sinful people, and I think even those who do suffer from a mental condition that maybe does drive them to commit murder or rape or whatever it is, that is a fallen part of ourselves, and I would hope that they would, at least, maybe they don't inherently, think they're doing anything wrong in the moment, and that's what satisfies them, brings them joy, as fucked up as that may be. I would imagine, I'm trying to get to the point where, sorry, I'm losing my point.
So there is mental illness and there is also devil possession.
Oh my God.
So let me ask you this while you're trying to think of your point. You say that you do think that we do have objective morals. What are these morals objectively based in?
They're based in the Ten Commandments, I would probably say.
The Ten Commandments that came from God?
Yes.
Okay. And did God make the morals, or is God telling us what the morals are because he is aware of what they are and he's just relaying them to us?
So I would say that we knew the morals from the moment we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's what I would
not us. Not us. I'm saying God is. Do the morals come from God, or does God have the morals somewhere else and he's just telling us what they are? He's relaying the message.
No, we're made in the image of God, so we have his morals. His morals are instated in us.
So the morals come from him?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so by definition, that means subjective morality.
We are made in
how is it subjective if it's something that is above?
Because it's grounded in a subject, which is God.
Yeah, but that's to argue that God is just a subject and that he is not. So that he is not something greater.
But God is the subject. If it was objective, it would be outside of God. It would just be the way things are, and God is just telling us how it is. But if the morals
God
come from him because God is the one who created it, then that means they are dependent on him, which means that they are subjective. By definition, that makes these morals subjective, even from God's point.
Okay, so here's the thing. Everybody wants to think that morals are subjective because they want to live their own way, they want to be their own little God, and so forth and so on.
No, that's not at all why. You make assumptions that are wrong. Please.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, okay? He created man in his image, and then he made a woman from man. Satan came along and tempted them, okay? He tempted her, and he said, "Yea, hath God said." Questioning right there. You understand that?
I think the whole
What's
story.
wrong to question the things that you're told?
God told Adam and Eve both, everything in this garden is yours except this one tree. Leave it alone. Do not eat of the fruit of that tree.
Okay.
In the day that you eat of that fruit, you will die. Not that you're going to die on that day. The moment that you eat of that fruit, you're going to die.
It says that day. It says that day.
Right. In the day, now it's another thing that's taken out of context. You take it, the day that you eat of the fruit, you're going to die. It doesn't mean that it's going to be literally right then. It means now you're going to die because you've entered.
It's not a physical death; it's a spiritual death.
It's not true.
So, here's the thing that here's the thing that confuses me about that whole story is Adam and Eve knew God before they ate the fruit. They knew good, and then they were tempted.
No,
they ate from the
not.
tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then their eyes were opened, and even God says, man has become like one of us in knowing good and evil. So now they knew both good and they knew evil.
Yeah.
Suddenly both were an option for them, basically. So here's the thing that doesn't make sense to me. Why were they punished for something that they couldn't have the ability to comprehend beforehand? Because if they didn't know what bad was, if they didn't know what evil was, and evil is going against God, how could they possibly know what disobedience was? They wouldn't know what disobeying was. They wouldn't know what death was. They wouldn't know what, dying physically versus dying spiritual means. And we have nothing in anywhere in the text of the entire Bible to show that God explained this to them. So it seems that God told very ignorant-minded people a thing that they possibly couldn't have followed, and then punished them for it when it was too late.
I think he's got bad service.
All right, so here's the thing, my friend. Listen. No, because it doesn't make sense to you. First of all, the Bible's never going to make sense to you until you have the Holy Spirit inside of you, and that's just the bottom line. Mm-hmm. When you read the creation account, and God created man, and then made woman, they both did not know the difference between good and evil yet until they ate of the fruit.
Exactly.
They didn't know that. Right. So what
which
does that
which
have
means they
anything
shouldn't have
to
been
do?
responsible for their actions before they ate. So
it would be really
God,
wise to let somebody finish talking. It's folly to a person to interrupt them.
Being so aggressive.
It's called boldness, not aggressiveness. There's
really
a difference.
Because your boldness has caused you to say a whole bunch of assuming things that have been extremely incorrect.
No, it's not. You do not. All you have done is prove to me that you really do not want to know Jesus. All you want to do is
okay.
just
You're
have an
entitled to your
intellectual debate. So now I'm
This
going
isn't
to
a
kick
debate,
the
sir.
dust off my feet.
This isn't a debate.
Not everybody that is wanting to talk to you is
Anyway,
looking for
move
some
on.
kind of truth.
Yeah, if he doesn't want to talk, that's on him. It doesn't matter. But Mullet, Jesus saves. What do you guys think about the story of Adam and Eve? Because do you see where I'm coming from? Where if they don't have the knowledge of good and evil, how could they possibly decide for themselves between right and wrong? And if they couldn't decide for themselves between right and wrong, then that means they shouldn't be held responsible for taking that action, because how could they possibly know what dying and death and disobedience and separation from God was until they had the knowledge of good and evil?
Right. I can see how this can get very, very confusing. And even to me, even for me, I'm not a pastor or anything. And even to me, is still, I don't have, all the detail. I don't have all the knowledge on it or anything like that. But I will say, they were told by God, their creator, right, to not eat of the tree, for they shall truly die, right? So he was giving them a option, right? He was giving us free will. It was under our will and we fell deceived by the snake. The snake didn't forcibly, make us go eat of that tree. We chose by our own devices and by our own we fell into temptation, right? We were tempted by the snake because we wanted to, we thought we were better than God. We said, technically, I must be better than our creator. And the snake's telling me I will be like our creator if I eat of this tree. And so we were tempted, we were lied to by the snake. And that is ultimately why we, then after that, we gained the knowledge of, good and evil, right? But then when we got the knowledge of good and evil, our full moral spectrum was opened, right? So we sinned against God, and from there we were fallen, right? We were basically cursed to work the land and pain in childbirth and so on and so forth, if that makes sense.
I've never understood the pain in childbirth thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, sorry. Can I also add something to? My name is Jeremy, by the way. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too, Jeremy. Real quick, are you over 18?
Yes, I'm 22.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. What do you have to say?
I'm also Christian. So I was hearing about I'm not sure it was Jesus Saves or who, but they said that they don't understand how, Adam and Eve ate the apple. You kind of have to understand it as a kid, right? A kid, you can tell them not to do this, but they will still do it, right? it's kind of like that, you know. They didn't. God told them don't eat from this fruit, but yet they still did it. So
Yes, actually, and that's my point exactly, Jeremy. I'm glad you touched on that. Adam and Eve basically had the minds of children because they could not reason right and wrong for themselves because they did not have the knowledge of good and evil.
Absolutely.
And without the knowledge of good and evil and without being able to make those decisions between right and wrong for yourself, how could you possibly claim you have quote-unquote free will or that you are responsible for the actions that you do? And a very common example that is brought up is that if I took, 4 children, toddlers, and I put them in a playpen, and I put a bunch of toys all over the playpen, and then I put one giant chef's knife in the middle of the playpen, and I told them all, hey, all of you, you can play with any toy in this playpen except for this object. Do not touch this object because you can get hurt. And they say it right back to me. They repeat it, they say they won't touch it. And then I leave. I go and I, go to the casino for 7 hours. And then I come back and one of those kids or worse is hurt or worse. Who is in trouble in that scenario? Who is responsible? Is it me or is it the child that picked up the knife when I said not to?
That is actually a very good question.
Sure. And who would you say is responsible? Is it me, the adult who has the full knowledge and understanding and the responsibility to take care of those that are not able to take care of themselves fully because they don't have all that information and are unable to do it? Yeah.
The only thing that the reason why I can't answer that question is because we also have to keep in mind that Eve was, how the serpent came and told you will gain the knowledge of this, and that. That we also had to put that in play. That, the serpent came, it told Eve, God is lying to you, you can eat from this fruit and you'll gain all the knowledge. So we also have to
deceived her.
Yeah, what does it matter, though? Whatever he told her, she couldn't process it right. She couldn't truly make a decision because she was unable to do so. She didn't have the faculties in order for it. And also, I think that we have 2 supernatural beings that are at play with a childlike minded human. Think about it. Like if a child were being abducted, and we found out that the interaction went something like the adult coaxed them into their van through the promise of candy and all that stuff. Are we really going to blame the child because they use their limited and faulty reasoning by saying, "Oh, they said they were going to give me candy, so I got in"? We would not. We would blame the adult who decided to prey on the child. So I don't understand why any of the fault or any punishment went to Adam and Eve or the human race for this action at all, when clearly the fault lies with the 2 supernatural beings at play, and more so on God.
I definitely do. Yeah, absolutely. But you made a great example. You know how you said a guy can come and say, "Oh, I have candy here," and the kid will go. That's exactly what happened with Adam and Eve. You can tell your kid, don't go into a guy's van or a random stranger's van, don't do this. But somebody else can come and lead them into the wrong direction and tell them, hey, I have candy, and boom, they'll do it. So
exactly.
you're kind of
and we would never punish the kid for falling victim to that, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Exactly, because we understand that their reasoning is very limited and faulty at that age.
That's because they're children, though.
Yeah, I mean, there are children, but let's say, if you told your kid, don't do this, right, and you've been telling, because I'm pretty sure every parent does this, where they tell the kid, don't get into strangers' vans, don't touch knives, because obviously, they can do harm. It's the same thing that happened with Adam and Eve. God told Adam and Eve, do not eat from that fruit, don't do it. A serpent came, which is, evil, came and told them to do it, and they did it. That's exactly what happened. It's a good explanation. You kind of answered it in your own way, kind of. I'm not sure if you're trying to.
That wasn't my question, but I am glad that you can at least see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I can see it.
My question following that, now that I guess you guys can see my position, would then be, would that not then make the entire thing of the fall of man, the original sin, and all of this seem very unnecessary, or at the very least seem very not justified and for no good reason, because they shouldn't have been punished?
So you're saying we shouldn't have gotten punished, right?
I'm saying Adam and Eve shouldn't have been punished. If God taught them, what it was, like, and we saw that, through the text they were educated and they grew and they, were able to make these decisions for themselves then, and then they fell. That makes sense. That makes so much sense to me. And, it would just go on like this. But the whole story of the Bible is Adam and Eve fell in this situation, in this story. And because of that, we need a savior. So, if that's the case...
Here's what I would argue is that the knowledge of good and evil in this time, right, when humans were created perfect in the eyes of God, the knowledge of good and evil was not something that was needed because we were created perfect in the eyes of God, and God gave us free will, right, and He gave us all these circumstances. And I would say that, I wouldn't say they had the minds of children. I think that's a little naive. Obviously I believe that they were probably adult. They were probably of adult age, and they were able to discern what they were doing, and they knew they were disobeying their Creator. And they knew the punishment. They knew the punishment they would have if they disobeyed their Creator. But they were tempted in their own selfishness, right, to partake of the fruit, which is why we fell against God. Because just because you don't have the knowledge of good and evil doesn't mean that you don't have reasoning.
True.
How do you do that, though? Because I think it does. I think that you need to have the knowledge of good and evil in order to decide for yourself what is right and wrong. One of those is definitely necessary.
Well, it's not necessary when it is laid out for you. What will happen when you disobey your Creator, right? It says, if you eat of this tree, you shall surely die, right? And you can make the argument, you're making the argument that, they have the mental complex of children, but I believe that's not true. Unless God created literal children, unless you're arguing that Adam and Eve are literally children.
No, I'm saying that, no, I have no issue saying that they were adults. I'm saying that they were not mentally able to reason for themselves fully. And I know that Jesse wants to ask or say something, so.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
First I want to lighten the mood a little bit. Fun fact, I'm an atheist and a Satanist, and my middle name is Eden. My son's name is Christian. I know.
That's cool.
I know that you'd said that, what was it? It could have been the guy that was up here. I don't know if it was him for sure or not that left, or if it was you, Mullet, when you were equating Eve eating the apple to painful child labor. Like, that's a result of that, correct?
Yep.
How would you explain, like, we can see biologically, like, what makes childbirthing labor, like child labor and birthing painful? What do you think changed in a woman's body? Like, because we can see the hips actually spread out, your cervix dilates, all these things happen to cause extreme pain. And we know, like, part of the reason is because of us becoming bipedal, which I know it's probably something you don't believe in, like the evolution thing. But even beyond that, we can explain why it's so painful. So what do you think our body was like before then?
Well, it doesn't even just boil down to that. It talks about how the man will struggle and be in pain when he works in the fields, right? He will work with thorn and thistle to grow crops, right? So it's the fact that before the fall there was no pain or suffering.
Well, actually, I would actually go against that because I would actually go against that because for the punishments being doled out to Adam and Eve, when as you guys were talking about, the pain and childbearing and stuff like that, it talks about how her pain will be multiplied,
right?
Which definitely implies that there is pain. So pain is existent. But because of the fall, because of the sin, it's going to be greatly magnified.
Okay, you could make that argument that the pain greatly multiplied. That is what it says. I guess I'm not sure on like the actual original like Hebrew translation, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'm pretty sure though. Prior to the fall, maybe there was some kind of pain associated with childbirth, even in the perfect world. But it wouldn't be anything near what we would what women experience today.
And just to clarify really quick, the pain that was because of hurting the apple was supposed to affect child labor from then on out. Was it this like what was the reason that his pain was intensified? Same reason?
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? You were
You
cutting
said
in.
that he will experience pain in the fields.
Well, yeah, he will work through thorn and thistle to grow I don't know word for word, but to basically
In the same way that we'll have painful child labor. Like, did they apply that? Did God apply that to him because of the same reason he applied that to Eve, or was he just?
Yes, they both fell. They both fell. So there was the same reason for there was the same reason for punishment. It wasn't just because Eve ate of the apple first or whatever. No, they both got their punishment.
I would definitely call that a cruel and unusual God then, because child labor is much different.
We disobeyed God.
So it's okay to give one person like 100 times the pain of somebody else, but for the same punishment.
Well, I wouldn't say. I mean, like I said, we don't. I can't tell you I can't tell you the reason behind why God chose this for punishment.
Okay.
All I know is He did it. He gave us this punishment because we fell against Him. I can't sit here and discern with you on
just asking clarification.
childbirth specifically.
Yeah.
Before I go, I have to go, but I enjoy this live actually. Atheists, you are very respectful. So is Jesse and Millette. Shalom, brother, and shalom to all of you. Thank you for being respectful. I have to go though. Bye.
Hey, thank you for being here, Jeremy. Have a good day.
You too, guys. Have a good day. Shalom.
Andy, in the guest request, are you a Christian? Thank you, good stuff videos. Yeah, even if things get a little heated from time to time, I think that we as adults can, we're responsible for ourselves and we can, bring our own tones down and just get back to the conversation. But I think at the end of the day, as long as we're just trying to be like, this is my position and this is why, do you understand it? Now, please share yours with me. I think that is both empathetic and as well as educational, both for each other but also whoever's listening. So I hope that it answers some questions for somebody, even if no one changes their mind. It's not my goal to change anyone's mind. I just like having good conversations.
Yeah, same here. I like having a respectful and good conversation, even if things get a little intense. I'm always willing to have a civil, bring my tone down, whatever people want. So
now I'm curious to your answer to number 4.
Ooh, next time, good stuff videos. Definitely send me a request next time. We'll have you up. Okay, Andy, we'll let you up too. So Jesse asked you about number 4.
Oh, number 4?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about now? We're moving over?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, I kind of skipped that. I'm sorry, Richard. It was just mainly because I just asked about the child labor thing.
Oh,
okay. Sure. I can see the connection then. If you want to answer number 4, feel free for it, Mullet.
I don't think. I think Christians. How can Christians not be pro-choice? I think it's very, very simple. I mean, we have texts from the Bible basically proving that life starts at conception, and people in the pro-choice community will commonly argue, well, Jesus is for the choice of, for free will and for free choice, but he's also an advocate for free will and free choice of that child, right? That child has no say over whether or not it wants to be AB'd.
Does it say that in the Bible?
In the Bible, we pretty much have, there is texts, I could look some up for you or cite them for you if you'd like. But we do have texts in the Bible pretty much, explaining that life begins at conception.
But now, do those same Bible texts allow for the life of the mother? Because there are going to be cases where the child may not be viable anymore, and the mother's life is at risk. So, where do the texts within the Bible say that?
There is no text in the Bible that would make the case for if the mother's life is as at risk. There's nothing in the Bible, that would say to prioritize the baby over the mother.
Well, you did just make the claim that like you made the reference to scripture about life beginning at conception, but right after that, you'd also said that it also says we have a choice. Like if we choose to do it, then.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? It depends, it's a gray area, right? There's nuance to it, right? Are you completely viable and capable of bringing out that child's life? Then I would say that, that's where I have a pro-life stance, and that's where a majority of abortions happen, is for the convenience of the mother, for the convenience of ourselves. I would be heavily against that. And as far as grape and other things, I would say I'm kind of torn on it, but I would say we shouldn't punish the child for something that happens that's out of the child's control.
Like letting it live and possibly having trauma.
The actions of grape and incest are acts of sin. And believe it or not, those should be, without a shadow of a doubt, the exceptions for a mother to not carry the offender's child to term, because that's indefinitely more trauma for the mother than.
Like I said, I don't have like a definite stance on it. It's kind of like I don't have like a specific like really steadfast position on that. All I know is if it's threatening the life of the mother, or if it is grape or incest, I would be willing to I can concede that, right? But that is we're talking about the exception, not the rule. 91% of abortions are done for the convenience, economic, mental convenience of the mother.
You got that? You got the receipt for that? By chance?
Yeah, it's pretty common statistics. You can look it up. I mean, I could leave the live real quick and pull up the evidence for you if you like.
So, if I may, the reason why I pose this question this way, like how can Christians not be pro-choice, is for a few points. First of all, I do not hold the position that the Bible, I don't hold the position that free will is biblical, but I know lots of Christians do. And I think that if you're a Christian that believes we have free will, then wouldn't the correct answer now, since we're under grace and stuff, and you believe that, the fetus is just going to go to heaven anyway, to be make your position known and give warning, but do nothing to stop them, because this is indeed their free choice. And that's something that they're going to have to answer to God in at the end. So it's your job is simply just to warn, not to make any kind of physical or legislative attempts to actually stop them from carrying out their free will. And then the second point that I would have would be that I think we all know that there are passages in the Bible where God himself orders or off children himself. So it seems that when it comes to, well, it's a life and God wants to respect the life of children to live, that doesn't really seem to be consistent. And then my last point would be, actually I have two more. When it comes to the life of an unborn versus the life of a person, I think if you go to Exodus 21, you'll see, starting in 22, when people who are fighting injure a pregnant woman so that there is a miscarriage and yet no further harm follows, the one responsible shall be fined what the woman's husband demands, paying as much as the judges determine. If any harm follows, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and stripe for stripe. So we see that the life of an unborn, because there's a miscarriage that follows, is just a simple fine. Whereas if any harm does continue to follow, so if anything worse happens, like bodily harm to the mother, then, or, the mother is unalived herself, then more drastic punishment is given, like a life for a life. So we see that even in older Jewish history and even biblically, there is a complete difference in value when it comes to the life of an unborn versus the life of someone who is born. And then my last point, I'm sorry, I know this is a lot. I'm almost done, I promise. And then my last point.
Add on something just real quickly. So in the Jewish faith, like there is something that says the religion does allow for abortions to happen. Now, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Atheist, again.
Yes, Judaism does allow for abortion. And then my last point is in Numbers 5, and it's basically a ritual to abort a child. This is when, if a man feels jealous and thinks that his wife cheated on him, he can bring her to the priest and have her go through this ritual where she will be forced to drink this liquid that has, the ashes of some herbs and, some dust from the temple floor. And it's supposed to judge whether or not she, cheated on her husband. And if she did cheat on her husband, depending on what translation you're looking for, you'll hear anything from it causes her to miscarry to, like, her uterus is dropping out. And she is basically left barren. Whereas if she is innocent, then nothing's going to happen. She'll be okay, and she's going to go and conceive children with her husband. Now, here's the thing, though. If you want to take the position that life starts at conception and take this into the biblical narrative, then we have to admit that this is calling for the abortion of children that are done out of adultery. Because this is what you can do, and this is something that is justified within the law that God himself is giving. So I think that when I say, how can Christians not be pro-choice, is because there's several examples in the Bible where the unborn do not have the same value as born people. God himself does not clearly value the lives of all children because he offs a lot of them and orders it himself. And then we see these passages where, it surely clears the difference in value, as well as showing a ritual for, basically the abortions. Because if a woman is made barren after she has conceived, then that means that there was a miscarriage and that baby was aborted.
Yep. Okay. I see where you're going with this. So basically, you're talking about ritualistic laws that no longer apply anymore. Obviously, these were ritualistic laws that were put in place by God for specific reasons. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know these reasons, right? I don't know why God put these laws in place. But at the end of the day, God created morality, and God is outside of morality. So at the end of the day, God gave us our morals. We're made in the image of God, but God also commanded. Yeah, I see what you mean, right? This is always a tough question for anyone, especially going back to the Old Testament. Talking about how God commanded Saul to, I believe, kill everything, right? Kill the women, the children, the cattle.
Yeah, I believe it's 1 Samuel 15:3 to unalive the men, women, children, and infants, as well as the cattle.
Yep. And this is obviously in the Old Testament, where obviously there was ritualistic laws. Certain people were unclean in the eyes of God and were not allowed to be part of the Israelite community. Some were, some weren't. And obviously, I am just a human. I can't sit here and question God for those actions, right? These were Old Testament things. This was before grace. But I will tell you that
are you a dispensationalist?
There were kings who were smitten down in the Old Testament for what we all call the pull-out method, right? So even in the eyes of God, our sperm alone is seen as something holy. And
plus the socks y'all got around y'all's house.
Okay, but I do have a question. You said something earlier, Mullet, that some people were not clean in the eyes of God. Now, in those words, what characteristics does somebody see in the Christian faith, let's just say, that they seem to be unclean? What characteristics or actions that people have taken that makes them unclean in the eyes of the Lord?
Like I said, I mean, from a Christian perspective, obviously after grace, everyone has been cleaned by the blood of Jesus. But in the Old Testament, right, I believe it would be discerned by, like, you know, I would imagine, you know, this is just my perspective, don't take my word on it. It would be like these pagan religions that believe in child sacrifice, that believe in cannibalism, things like that, that would make them unholy in the sight of God.
Hold on. I think I not misconstrued. Sorry, that was the wrong word. I worded that question wrong. So, what are some of the actions that makes somebody unclean in the eyes of the Lord? Not like believing in pagan rituals or, you know, sacrificing children. That's like several steps and leagues of what I'm asking. So, like, what are specific actions? Is it, you know, drinking just for the sake of being an alcoholic, or, you know, just an example of something like that?
I guess, yeah, in the Old Testament, there are specific ritualistic and actual, like, legal laws in the Israelite or in the Israelite, like, kingdom that would constitute someone, even an Israelite, as unclean. I believe some of them had to do with women in their periods, and I guess I don't know. That's like one of the ones I can name, where it was like a woman is unclean during her period, so a man is not to touch the woman, right? But that doesn't mean that, you know, they are like, that doesn't mean they're to be like outcasted from society, right? Or from the Israelite kingdom. So I guess maybe my argument is wrong. Maybe it's not like the fact that they're unclean, but maybe it's the fact that they worship. I believe these other cities or city-states at the time believed in other gods, and they participated in heinous things like child sacrifice and cannibalism and things like that.
Okay, but I'm not trying to get at, you know, the children's sacrifice or animal sacrifice, whatever, or just anything crazy along the lines of pagan rituals or sacrifices. I'm not trying to talk about that. Am I saying if somebody is unclean, their actions, be it, you know, drinking, having sex for pleasure, does that make them unclean in the eyes of sort of any religion, be it Islam, Judaism, or the Christian faith?
In the Christian faith, we in the time of grace right now, it would not make you unclean because your sins and iniquities have been put upon Jesus, right? So no one's unclean in the era of grace, right? But in the Old Testament, before we had grace, yes, those things would constitute you being unclean, right? And then they obviously had their rituals and things like that, where they had to sacrifice the lamb. There's the Passover and things like that, that God created so that his chosen people could be clean once again.
Okay. So we're getting somewhere. So now my next question to you would be, do you think that it's fair for somebody in the modern day society, in the year of our Lord 2024, to have any sort of Christian nationalist ideals to the extreme that where somebody does something, let's just say having sex for pleasure, or talking with somebody or being with somebody who's had different sexual experiences, sorry for the sake of TikTok, experiences before their marriage or so on and so forth? Do you think that's fair to look down upon that person just because of trivial things? In my eyes, that's trivial, such as that.
No, we are not to look down upon other humans or other people, right? Because as Christians, right, our view is to love and care for all, is to love our enemy, right? It's to and even though they may not even be our enemy, maybe their neighbor, and maybe they do engage in those things, but the way that we show the love of Christ is not by looking down on people. It's to actually preach the word of God. It's not to cast judgment down on people, because we're not God. We're not Jesus. We have no right to cast judgment on people.
Right. Okay, so now like that's my overall point of what I'm trying to get at. And it's like Christians, the way that I've seen it, because like I grew up Presbyterian, which is a branch of Christianity, but we're kind of loose in some terms. I'm not 100% sure because I've had my own relationship with religion for a majority of my life, but I have
Wait,
walked away from
hold on just a second. I'm so sorry. Stolas, what's going on in the comments? Is there like a bad one I need to delete?
Yeah, they're just saying like Egyptians and the Sumerians are too stupid of a people. They're calling them like illiterate, and that they couldn't possibly know what contraceptives are.
I'm sorry. I saw someone said.
Okay.
I saw someone said race bait, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting y'all and preacher.
Oh, no.
It's all good.
Go ahead and continue, Andy and Mullet. But I do want to get to Stolas soon. I know he's been waiting for a moment. So.
Okay, yeah. So I'm almost done. Trust me. And Stolas, you'll jump in here in just a second. All right. So, but we have to acknowledge the fact that there are some people that are so embedded into their religion that they lose the forest from the trees, essentially, because Christians, as much as they claim to be pro-life, quote unquote, they seem to look down upon others for certain choices that benefit them, or certain choices that they make, which, would be viewed as a sin in, whatever testament or any passage of the Bible, or whichever scripture of whatever religion somebody may practice, is that we have choice. We have the choice to live our lives in the way that we want, but we shouldn't allow our choices to affect others. And we should not cast judgment onto anyone else for making choices for living their best life, only if it affects them in a certain way that is detrimental to them. I believe we still need to allow ourselves to make the choices to better ourselves, but also to live out our best lives as possible. And I think in any religion, that's what any person who practices that would want for anyone else. I personally think.
Okay, yeah, I can see where you're going with this, and I agree with you pretty much on all points there. I mean, you shouldn't. No Christian, no real true Christian who's read the Bible and truly understands the Bible would ever put judgment down on someone who has had an abortion, because I'm sure that Christian they've done horrible things. I mean, everyone has done things in their life that are sins against God. We're all sinners. And this is a common misconception that Christians get, because a lot of, I would say heretics, they take the Bible and they think they're all holy, holy, holy. And they're not even acknowledging their own sin and their own problems in their life. Yet they want to, come after these women who have had abortions, or people who live maybe an LGBT lifestyle, or whatever it is, right? I don't believe in casting judgment on those people. I just believe in telling them what the Word of God is, and looking at the evidence. And if the evidence supports the Bible, I think we should live in the ways of Jesus and try to follow God's laws. That's what I believe. So.
On that same token, though, and this is just my last point, even if people who are atheists don't believe in that, we shouldn't be shoving religion down people's throats. And it's still, going back to choice, is that, okay, if somebody believes in a certain religion, let them believe in that certain religion. If they don't, allow that person to live out their lives, even if they don't believe in the specific religion. They are still a human. They deserve to live out their lives in peace, and that is it. I've had, my ex-girlfriend was atheist. She is a part of the LGBTQ community, but that's it. We shouldn't be shoving religion down people's throats, is what I'm trying to get at. And if somebody does practice religion, leave them be. If they are an atheist, leave them be.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, here's my one thing, right? I think the guys who are on the street preaching God's word, I don't think they're shoving it down people's throats. I mean, they're not. Yeah, I don't agree with quote unquote, what do they call them? The guys who walk across the street and shove Bibles in people's faces. That is completely the wrong way to go about it. But there's nothing, I don't believe there's anything wrong with like street evangelism or anything like that. Like going out and talking about the word of God on the street and telling people about the saving grace. I don't believe that's shoving it down people's throats.
And you know what, Mullet? I agree with you. There's nothing wrong with street preachers. I do have an issue when they start using their preaching to harass the public that is passing them with their belief.
I don't agree with harassing anybody. That's ridiculous. So
there's also people like with signs saying like, F words are meant to burn in hell and all this other stuff. Like that's kind of extremely inappropriate in my eyes.
Yeah, that's like what is that? Like the Southern Baptist Church? They do that.
I'm sorry, Jesse. What?
I think I'm gonna have to be an op on the street preacher.
That's all right. See, and I like that because this shows that just because we hold the same position of I don't believe in God, that doesn't mean that we're on the same side of every single issue. So when we get religious people that want to lump us all together, I think pointing out things like this is a good example of we don't all agree and we can't be lumped together like this.
Yeah, atheism just literally means we don't believe in God. Like beyond that, it could be anything. But I did want to disagree with the street preacher thing. I don't think, and y'all will have to hear me out, I don't think that children should be exposed to religion, whether it be grace, saying grace, going to church, going to Sunday school, saying prayers with your parents, praying around with people, anything like that until they become college age where they can make their decision to choose that as an elective or start going to church. Because I feel like in 2024, religion, especially Christianity, requires a level of critical thinking where they can actually take this religion and understand the text and understand how to utilize it like into their life and how to not cause harm at the same time. Because also when someone is a child, K through 12th grade, they're at a critical part of development. And if they've already been exposed to any religion, regardless if it's just praying once a week, that's already given them some sort of idea to where, like, to a religion that they might want to be in, instead of giving them a clean slate and the opportunity to choose themselves. And I was heavily indoctrinated. I'm speaking from my experience. Okay, now y'all go off.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say I disagree with that because I mean, who are you to tell another parent, what's best, what they think is best for their kid? I mean, that if most if parents think that having their kid in the church and things like that is best for their kid, and that's what the parents truly believe, and the parents are avowed Christians, I don't see any problem with exposing your child to religion. I think that's just a little.
Their religion, yeah.
Hold on, because I do have to leave in a couple minutes. My position on that, Jesse, and you actually bring up a pretty good point. However, and don't I'm kind of, it's a finicky sort of thing, my position on this, and it's like, do I believe that religion shouldn't be shoved down people's throats? Yes, but there are some circumstances where parents who grew up in a certain generation where they've been raised to go to church every Sunday, or whichever religion that they practice, however many times that they go to temple, mass, or whatever. Sometimes we don't always have the place to tell parents to not bring their kids to that specific place where they practice the religion, or grow up in a religion that they want to believe in. It is only, and do I agree with you on the critical thinking point? Yes, but it is still the choice of that person or that child whether or not they continue to practice the religion or if they completely disregard the religion altogether. For an example, I grew up, like I said, Presbyterian. I went to church every Sunday to a certain point, but at that certain point, I went on my own terms. So then at a certain point, I stopped going, and periodically I would go during specific holidays like Easter, Christmas, or whichever. And, or just whenever I felt like I wanted to go to church. Ultimately, altogether, it was my choice to stop practicing the religion altogether. So it's kind of a finicky sort of position, because on the one hand, yes, it is people's choices to, not to continue practicing that religion or not practice that religion. But at the same time, we're not always there to tell people, okay, you can't bring your kids to this place or that place. But it's not to dispute your position. To me, it's just sort of a finicky type of position.
So oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You're fine. I was just saying I hear you. I was just also going to add, I think that there should be a minimum age requirement for churches. I know it's just kind of like rubbing it in, but this is how I would implement these things. I think that there should be a minimum for churches. And I think that if children have been exposed by their parents, like to religion, I think that they should have some sort of process of monitoring them. Like, for example, if they come to school and they say that they've been praying, I think that maybe for the next 2 weeks, just making sure, see how their cognitive functions are, and make sure nothing's changed. But I know that that's very extreme. But but if nothing else, I would rather just get awareness out there that critical thinking can be affected. I don't want to actually go in and advocate for these laws to be in place.
Wait, Jesse,
advocating for laws.
Do you understand that it's actually been studied by NASA itself that schools actually drop the IQ of children?
Against what? I didn't hear you.
So NASA conducted a study around the 1970s of that public schools relatively drop the IQ of children, or at least they prevent the potentiality of increasing the IQ.
Do you have anything a little bit more recent than 1970s?
Yeah, you said public schools drop the IQ?
Yeah, public schools. I mean, first you would have to make an argument that there's somehow a contradiction to our curriculum to the ones in 1970, which there isn't. It's the same curriculum.
Well, I think a lot of what's been taught in school has changed from today versus 1970.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the curriculum of the state that's bestowed upon high school, what's the major difference? That would significantly increase the IQ of a child. Because we knew quantum mechanics, we knew black holes, we knew.
What happened in 1970 to make them do an IQ check?
1970, we were freaking creating a Black Hawk that was undetectable in the human eye. I mean, I don't know. I think
so. We needed to do an IQ check on children.
An IQ check. I mean, I would say the government should have no say in the IQ check. But yeah, I would say NASA itself has concluded that when they first tested all children before middle school and high school, that they were all tested to be geniuses in creativity and
that's cool.
An approach to questions. But then after they went from middle school and high school, the populations from thousands of people that were tested decreased, and by the time they were in in college, there were either no IQ geniuses or there were just very select few.
Damn, no wonder we really suck now. We should really have education reform, huh?
Well, that's the thing, though. The problem is that education is determined by government. So, you trying to say that we need to regulate churches is the same problem of regulating schools. That's just tyrannical, right?
I never said the government had to regulate churches.
Well, the regulation always has to be enforced by the government, is it not?
But that's why we have separation of church and state. And, that's to make sure that religion doesn't overtake every single government decision action. Religion should be the very last thing. While
you do realize it was vice versa, right? If you actually read Thomas Jefferson's writings, it was never that. It was vice versa. The government should not have control of the church.
I mean, if that were the case, how were they able to shut them down for COVID?
Huh?
But again, going back to the point that I made previously, is that there are some people with a very Christian nationalist mindset within government that believe that religion should ultimately be the end-all, be-all that decides all of our choices. And what we're trying to argue is that shouldn't be the case. It should be an unbiased decision, not based on religion or anything else. It should be an unbiased choice that should benefit the whole of the country as a whole. All right? So in terms, it's if we want better education, this shouldn't be a partisan issue based on religion or anything else. It should be about, okay, what can we do to make our education system better, and trying to give our future generation the best education possible.
Now, I will go ahead and just concede to that, because I didn't realize how the government would have to be involved with that, because I did forget that church leaders are no longer required to be mandated reporters either. So I kind of get how the government wouldn't want to be involved with something like that, which is unfortunate. But I still wouldn't advocate for children to be going to church.
I mean, okay. So like it's honestly like right, we should be having like people like Aristotle in the government, right? But the thing is, you have to trust due process, right? So like you trying to limit a specific, literally a way of thinking, right? A Christian nationalist is not going to suddenly limit the Pax Americanist who wants to create American empire, right? So it doesn't really do anything. It's just the due process.
Well, yes and no, because like there are some extremist Christian nationalists. Like, let's take example of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Does she seem to practice Christian values? No, and she openly said that she divorced I can't even speak. She divorced her husband, and that was because she cheated on her husband multiple times, and then she goes with the defense, oh, it was an open marriage. Now, she still claims that this nation should be a Christian nation, but she herself doesn't seem to practice the very same values that she claims to practice if she had an open marriage and cheated on her husband multiple times. Now, and she still believes in overall that religion should be the driving force behind every decision that the government should be taking.
Okay, but that's the thing. We have due process to prevent that. Like, has she ever significantly impacted the community that she was currently ruling over? Probably not. So it's like it's just talking, really.
Well, I mean, she did precisely jack shit, but I think that's a whole nother conversation altogether. But why do you believe? But okay, let's talk about this. It's not something I should say that you specifically believe in, but for instance, why should there be Bibles in virtually every classroom? Why should the courthouse walls have the 10 Commandments in Alabama?
Louisiana.
Because like, I guess 10 Commandments is just like, I would say, an intuitive idea of law.
Like, yeah, I mean, it was written. It's been. I mean, it's basically already written into our law here because of the Jefferson Bible.
Where is God?
Jefferson Bible was a huge standard for law here in the early beginning of the United States, and basically it was the Bible with all the religious aspects ripped right out of it. It was literally just the actual testament to law, essentially. You know, it wasn't anything to do with God or religion, but it was a good starting point for people to build laws off of.
So I'm not quite sure I agree with that, because the Ten Commandments, how much of that has nothing to do with our laws? You know, we have no laws against idols or idol worship or having other gods besides the Christian God. We have no laws that, you know...
Not the first four, but
we have no laws about resting on the Sabbath. We have no laws about executing cheaters. We have no laws about coveting or anything like that. As far as the stealing and the murdering, those are just kind of like the, you know,
those are the unfortunate byproducts.
Those are kind of like the common sense ones that everyone else had too. So it doesn't. The Ten Commandments don't really seem like anything special when it comes to us building our nation, because we don't follow them.
Yeah, and you know, to that point, it's like, okay, if we don't follow them, then why should they be displayed? When some of us, again, don't believe in certain religions or certain deities, have our own relationship with it, or as opposed to the people that practice it to the T.
Yeah, well, so your issue is being displayed. So, like, by this logic, why should we display a "Don't Tread on Me" flag when this country is clearly not libertarian, right? Like, it's just something that every person has the right to express, even the state, right? Unless we're just going to just blatantly be tyrannical and say, like, no, we can't allow, like, religion, but we can allow, like...
So do you think that right next to the Ten Commandments, we should have a petition to put up the tenets of Satanism?
If that's voted
They're
for,
actually more moral, in my opinion, than the Ten Commandments or than anything in Christianity.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
what
if
about
people vote
the
for
eight
it, right?
principles
I
and
think
what about the
voting.
8 Nordic principles? Should we put those up as well?
Yeah, no matter any kind of hypothetical, it's just going to be consistent. I'm not going
Okay,
to somehow
so
be
yes,
inconsistent.
you agree with that.
Yeah, even though I don't even really support the idea of voting, it's pretty draconian. But I
Okay,
think
but
anyone has the right to
now
do whatever they want.
okay, but here's another thing that I would ask. It's like, where in the Bible would it teach a child? Let's say we're giving the Bible to a 7-year-old, and we're expecting this child to just learn the very basis of math, science, history, and whatever general subject is taught nowadays within the school system, right?
By the
Where
way, guys, this is a 10-minute warning. I'm gonna get off in about 10 minutes. All right.
Okay. But just like real quick, where do you think that anywhere in the Bible would teach a young child about science, math, biology, or anything about history? The history part, that it may be kind of skewed, but we're talking about just history in general, like facts that happened in certain periods in time. And but what about the others? Math and science and so on and so forth.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm so yeah. So like, you are you just saying like, why should it be with the?
No. Here's what I'm asking. How can the Bible, if let's just say all of us believe that the Bibles should be in every classroom across America, and this is the general idea or the consensus of what the right believes and what Christian nationalists believes. Now, how is the next generation supposed to understand the basis of math, science, when all they're getting their education from is the Bible?
So like, are you saying like this is like draconian world where everyone learns from the Bible and not math?
That's what it seems to be in my eyes, is what a lot of what the right's rhetoric and the Christian nationalist rhetoric
I don't
seems
know what the hell you're.
I got something right here. This is actually Texas. They're trying to implement a biblical infused curriculum into their schools. Excuse me. And these are going to be public schools. These are also going to be optional. They're going to be optional and public. It's going to they're going to get extra funding for it as well.
Okay, yeah, it's optional. If people vote,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the state doing what it wants to do.
That's the thing, right? So it's like you guys understand that this is a due process. If
what do you mean due process?
Yeah, if the people don't want it, it won't happen.
Like if people don't want it, it's not going to happen. Like it's like we're again, as much as I don't like this tyrannical government, it's not as tyrannical as like others, and there is a due process, and like it's like either one, like what do you want? Do you want a monarchy or do you want like I don't get it. It's just
but
like
this is kind of what Andy was talking about though, like as far as it being in the curriculums. Like could you imagine not having a Schmex Ed class and learning about circumcisions in the Bible or seeing it in the Bible?
That's essentially what
choice. There's so many conflating ideas in schools. People they're literally people who are staunch conservatives and radical liberals from the same school.
Yeah, but the thing for schools should be just solely about education. Religion is something that has zero connection with education.
I mean,
So what would you say about like gender ideologies
ambiguous?
being taught early in the classroom at like 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade?
Right, but education, the very word, is ambiguous.
yeah,
It doesn't underlie any kind of connotation. Education doesn't mean
I'm
anything.
not against like SMEX education classes for kids K through 12, but as it progressively goes on, you have to start teaching children more and more. Like, okay, let's say in K through very early on before middle school, like you have to learn about good touch, bad touch. You're not saying like talking about labias, certain appendages, or genitalia, right? Because a child is not even going to remotely process that. But it's to make sure that, God forbid, that they get raped or they are sexually harassed by a relative or somebody else, then, they can say, okay, I was, bad touched by so-and-so, and it wasn't a good touch by so-and-so.
Okay, I'm just making the point that there is non-scientific, non-biological ideologies that are already being taught in school, particularly leftist ideologies that are being taught in schools. I mean, we have evidence of this stuff. I mean, there's videos of teachers even confessing to teaching kids about, heinous things that kids should not be knowing about in, kindergarten, first or second grade. And I don't see, I agree that maybe we should just, we shouldn't have any kind of ideologies being taught in school, and it should be purely educational. But unfortunately, on both sides of the aisle, no matter where you look, there is false ideologies being taught in the classroom, or religious ideologies being taught in the classroom, no matter where you go.
What you're calling false ideologies and religious ideologies, I bet you, are two different things, and one of them probably is the one that gives you brain rot.
Well, I'm saying both, right? If we're just going to have education, if we want purely education in schools, we're already not getting that now. We are getting education. We're telling kids there is more than just boy and girl.
Yeah, I'm curious, Mullet. What can you give me an example of one of these heinous things that? Because I don't know what videos you're referring to. What heinous things?
I mean, there's books that are being given to kids. I mean, there's books that are being given to kids that are very questionable.
Like, so the book is heinous, is what you're saying?
Yeah, the book. I mean, these teachers are reading these books to kids too, young kids.
Okay. Like what's the subject material of the books?
Usually talking about schmecks.
Is it like for Schmeck's Ed or in the library?
Sorry, what?
Sorry. Schmeck's Ed or in the library?
I'm talking we're teaching Schmeck's Ed to young kids, very, very in depth.
Okay, so it's in what context and to what age groups? Because I think to a certain degree it should be taught. It should be taught at an age appropriate level all throughout, because some parents don't do that. They don't teach their kids about that stuff. For example, me, I never got any of that conversations from either of my parents. They didn't teach me about good touch, bad touch. They didn't teach me any of that stuff, or what it was like to actually have that experience through my own choosing, what to do. So I'm not talking about I think that if the parents are going to fail in that, then the school, it is their duty to provide that education as well, an unbiased way of saying, look, these are the facts of reality, and this is the types of people in the world, and at your age, this is the language that you need in order to communicate the needs that you might have. So like at a kindergarten level, you want to educate them how to verbally communicate with an adult. Hey, someone made me uncomfortable. You want them to be able to be educated on that kind of language and that kind of body language, so that if something does happen to them, they can recognize it, instead of just being like, I didn't know what was happening to me, but they just kept saying that they were nice. And as the kid grows up, if the parents continue to fail giving them the information that the kid needs, it is the school's duty to be there, I think.
I mean, you're kind of twisting my argument here. I mean, I have nothing against making a vague teaching or teaching kids vague things like that to protect children.
I don't think that's vague at all. I think it has to be very. I think these kind of things are very in depth.
Well, the problem is some parents, they won't always have the best of ideas on how to explain it. Because, how is it that we're going to rely on all of the parents of every single kid in America to teach them proper and safe Schmeck's Ed? What, the birds and the bees talk? I feel like that conversation, as much as it's appropriate to have at a certain point, it can only get you so far. But that's where the education system has to come into play and teach children proper Schmeck's education, all right? In turn, both safety-wise and making sure that nothing happens to them, and that there is also consent involved, especially as you get older.
Well, the thing is, we also need an appropriate social science class that's going to prepare us for the society that's going to be likely much different than the home that we're used to and the school that we're used to. But we need to understand that different people exist, or that this is how we got to where we are in society, so we can understand and have some kind of some sort of awareness amongst other people, so we can not have this automatic bigoted mindset for people who aren't us.
And Mullet, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, come across like I was trying to twist your position or anything. Is it? I guess because you were talking about like ideologies and stuff like that. Are we talking more of like, like transgender issues and stuff like that?
Yeah, I would say like, I don't know. I've seen clips. I mean, you can even find some of these teachers on TikTok. I mean, they're literally questioning kids. Oh, are you a boy? Are you a girl? Why are you asking young kids this question? They don't have the complex or the understanding to understand what they truly are yet. You know what I mean? And that should be for them to decide once they're later on in life. I'm not, they can do whatever they want when they're older, but we shouldn't have teachers basically shoving this kind of ideology down kids' throats. And I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, I think the same way about religion, though.
Hold on. I got something to say on that one. So, Mullet, I do have to disagree with this, all right? Because here's the thing. It's not being shoved down children's throats. It's, okay, and you're probably misconstruing that type of scenario with something that hasn't even virtually happened. So it's not teachers trying to shove this transgender LGBTQ ideology that is so extreme in the rights mindsets down children's throats, all right? It's where we're talking about kids that are starting to question whether or not, okay, at a very young age, like, okay, will a young kid, like a boy, just say, okay, do I like girls? Yes. Does a young girl reach a point where they say, oh, do I like this boy? Yeah, I like this boy. But there's also going to be other things that run through their mind in their own heads at a young age with nothing being shoved down their throats. It's like, okay, my friend, do I seemingly like this person more? And they probably don't know that at a young age so much. But as they get older, they maybe then start to realize, okay, I feel as if I'm a boy trapped in a woman's body. All right. And that's perfectly fine. That's valid. They're valid in feeling that way, just as valid as, them a girl having feelings for another girl, or, a boy having feelings for another boy. It's not being shoved down people's throats. The teachers, in essence, are trying to provide a safe space for their students that are probably questioning their sexuality or their identity at that point. And they're just trying to say, like, okay, you can talk to me, but this is a safe space where I'm not going to tell anyone. And that's where certain laws are now coming into play, where it's like, this law is saying if this child is transgender, you need to expose that to the child's parents, when they're probably not even ready to tell them or come out of the closet just yet. And like, it should be up to that child or that young adult for them to tell their parents whenever they're ready that, hey, Dad, I might like boys, I might like girls,
How can one say they might like something?
Yeah, I was about to say this is not talks that teachers, a separate adult from me, should be having a conversation about this with my child. I feel completely uncomfortable with that. I would be infuriated as a parent to learn that a teacher was talking to my child about their own, personal sexual, feelings. That is something to be talked about between a parent and their child.
Before I drop really quick, I want to say.
Hold on, guys. Jesse's gonna leave us, but she wants to say one thing.
I do want to say one more thing, and I'm saying this as someone who is the B in the LGBTQIA, and somebody who has a son who's 15. Excuse me. When it comes to our children, if you don't want a child that's GAY, if you would disown them, you should not have children. Number one, because that's not going to be put in anybody's head. It's not a choice. Also in school, as far as in schools, And if they're exposed to these things and they're able to put language to how they feel about themselves or who they are, that's okay. And also, if they decide at whatever age that they are this sexuality, or that they might be their specs and gender might not line up, that's okay too. That doesn't make them all of who they are. We are tired of being hypersexualized. Like, oh, they're in LGBTQIA. Like, that's our whole identity. No, I'm bisexual. I'm a nurse. I'm a mother. I'm a friend. I'm a sister. I'm all these things. That's just a small part of me. But everybody else is making it, is hypersexualizing it and acting like that's all of who we are and treating us like that's all of who we are, because that's what y'all don't like. So what you're bigoted toward. And then you hate all of us.
Yeah, and you have to understand, Mullet, that while you may have certain viewpoints on the LGBTQIA, whatever, I don't know specifically what they are, but here's the thing. You have to acknowledge that there are hyper bigots on that side of the aisle that are willing to just go out of their way and make certain laws and certain spaces that are meant to be safe for those particular people that they don't want it to be there anymore. And it's like, I understand that you may be infuriated, but at the same time, put yourself in the situation where, okay, you know what? What have I done to make my child not feel so comfortable around me that they can't tell me their own sexual preference? And it's like, okay, if I had a child, I mean, you know, I would start to question, oh, hey, you know, okay, you understand that you could tell me anything, right? It's something as simple as that that should be allowing you as a parent for your child to make a safe space in your own house for your own child. And if they decide that they love differently, then unconditionally, with every parent, unconditional love, you would love your child either way. You cannot be your child's first bully. You may have certain viewpoints, but at the same time, you cannot be your child's first bully if they come out as either gay, bisexual, lesbian, trans, or whatever. All right? And I'm also going to say this. I dated somebody that was bisexual. I absolutely love this person. She thought I would have a problem with her being bisexual. Absolutely not, because we had that trust within each other that, you know, we're going to stay loyal to each other. Did things work out in the end? No, because we had our own problems that were completely separate from the sexuality point. I am with somebody who identifies as pansexual. Same exact thing. We have that trust within each other. We don't run around with, you know, other people. We are loyal to each other. That's what I'm trying to get at. Do you understand?
Yep, I get what you're coming at, and I would, you know, obviously, no matter what, you know, my child tells me, obviously, I would still love them, even though I may disagree, or maybe I, as a parent, wouldn't, you know, condone it, right? I would still love my child, right? But this is what it comes back down to. If I truly love my child, I don't want another adult coming in and talking to my child, or possibly even influencing my child, right? When I am the parent, it is a child, right? We can agree that children do not have the full mental complexity or concept that we have as adults, right? And to trust another adult to have that conversation with my child that I have not spoken with or given permission to speak with my child about, that is not their doctor, it is not their physician. Okay, I could never condone a teacher, someone who is purely meant to teach my child math, English, you know, etc. Why should I allow a teacher to talk to my child about their internal feelings and sexuality?
Because
it's education.
Or maybe because the child has developed not a relationship per se, but feels safety around the teacher and comfortable enough to say, okay, you know what? Hey, Mr. So-and-so, I think I might like this person. And it could be a girl saying that she likes another girl in the class. It's something as simple as that. Now, granted, they're solely there to teach certain subjects, but also a teacher, especially within the public setting, is also meant to provide safe spaces for all their students. All right. Look, I've taught within the public education system, and I always wanted to make sure that no matter what, I always taught the subject that I was teaching, but that my students are also okay within every single class that we had, both professionally and that they are comfortable to come with me to certain issues. But I always say, okay, now look, it's good that you came to me, but at the same time, I think you should also discuss this with your parents whenever you are ready. That is the key thing that I always come back to. And sometimes that will be whenever the children wants to. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, or it could never happen. And if it never happens, that's probably because within certain homes, there is probably something that the parents do or something that they say constantly that makes them feel, okay, you know what? I'm so uncomfortable and not ready to come out to my parents just yet. Or I probably have to wait until I'm older and move out of the house to be comfortable with living who I am as a person.
I guess here's something to think about. If your child does not feel comfortable talking to you about these issues,
I do gotta run, but this was a good conversation.
Thank you for being here, Andy. I guess a question I would have is that if your child doesn't feel comfortable enough to come to you with whatever the issue is, would you rather they go to a teacher to try to, find a way to verbally communicate this with you versus going to another kid or worse, somebody on the internet?
If the teacher was someone who was a servant for the state or government, absolutely not.
So you would rather your child feel either alone or go to someone online?
You can go to
another
anyone
kid?
else but a federal worker.
Interesting. On any issue?
Yeah, you can go to the neighbor next door. I would trust that more reliable than someone who's literally employed to have a certain agenda that serves the state.
Yeah, I agree with that. So if it's like,
I don't agree with that on every single issue. If your child was being assaulted, in some horrible way, and they confided in a teacher, wouldn't you rather that than them not?
No, you could go to literally anyone else.
So you wouldn't like it if your kid confided in a teacher about being assaulted?
No, go to anyone else.
I think that's so wild. Who cares who helps your kid through that as long as your child feels that they can tell someone?
No, I would never trust, again, someone who's employed to fit a narrative for a state.
What
right?
narrative do you think?
Whatever the state wants, right?
On
The state is circumstantial, right? The state could be red, the state could be blue, right? I mean, I feel like a liberal household would be pretty uncomfortable having a conservative teacher, right, be like their source of for the child's emotional baggage, right? It's the same thing, vice versa, right? No matter what.
I'm just saying that if I had a kid and someone assaulted them, I wouldn't care what party the teacher was that they confided in. If the teacher came and told me, hey, your child told me this, and I wanted you to know, I think that's great.
Well, I mean, that's saying
that's what
help,
they should do,
right? Yeah, I think that's not the same question.
Do you think? Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a teacher. Do you really think that every single teacher
that's not even a teacher? That's just
an agent of the state?
An adult. Yeah, I would just say you just run to an adult to deal with matters that you cannot deal with yourself, right?
Yes, and aside from the
basic common
parents,
sense.
what adults are most common in kids' life aside from the parents? Teachers.
That's circumstantial. It's not a guarantee.
For most kids, yeah.
I'm saying
especially if we're
that
talking
doesn't.
about the public education system, which we were. So yeah,
Yeah,
they
see, the
would see
fact is that it's not a
adults,
guarantee
teachers.
because they have several different kinds of teachers. Like, teacher doesn't mean anything to me. What about the kind of teacher, right? But the if you're just simply trying to solve an issue you cannot solve yourself, you run to a trusted adult. That's like that's fine. It's common sense, but that's not to the topic. The topic is rather if you're trying to be convinced, you must find some kind of convincing, some kind of settling with some type of emotion or some type of thought. Never, ever, ever go to someone that is literally employed to fit a narrative of a state. That's just called state indoctrination, right?
Yep. I don't know. I would say this. Yeah, I agree with that, right? If a child's genuinely in danger or needs help, of course, go to the nearest adult. I'm not against that. I am against, obviously a child having, obviously very, very personal, maybe feelings, emotions, maybe they have some kind of thoughts or opinions on their own sexuality or whatever, schmexuality. That's fine, but the teacher does not have the authority or position to have that conversation with my child. That is purely between a parent and their child.
I don't think just any teacher should be having that conversation with a child. I think there should be, like, there's gym teachers, math teachers, and stuff like that. I think there should be sex ed teachers, and I think that those should be the teachers that are extremely vetted and can show consistent unbiasedness to be able to provide what is best for the child and to be able to help bridge communication between the child and the parents if need be.
Yeah, it's one thing if it's like here's the thing, right? If they were to go talk to someone that I know, right, that maybe it's one of my personal friends or it's a counselor at the school who pretty much has to tell the parent what's going on with their child so the parent is educated on what's going on. Otherwise, the parents are left in the absolute dust. And guess what? That creates an even more of a worse environment at home for the child because the parent has no clue what's going on. So
teachers would be under the same obligation. They would have to tell.
Not always. They're
not
not
always.
lawyers.
Yeah, in certain states, there's actually there's certain things in place for teachers to keep things like that confidential, which I think is just abhorrent. Honestly,
if they feel that the child is going to be in direct harm, like at the house, then there are certain things that they're allowed to keep. So, like, for example, if the child shows up with a bunch of bruises and they confide in the teacher that their dad is beating them, that is something that they wouldn't call the dad and say, guess what, I saw some bruises on your child. Like, that's something that they would go through another channel to try to fix the problem instead of going to the parents. You understand?
Right, we're not talking about danger. We're talking about inherent feelings or emotions inside my child that does not need to be that a teacher does not need to be having a conversation with my child, right? If they come to school with bruises or something, obviously the child is clearly in danger and child protective services need to be called, right?
Sure, but if we're talking about things like, being trans, being gay and stuff like that, instead of, something like physical bruises, being beaten stuff, quote unquote ideologies, as you say, I still don't see how that doesn't mean that there isn't the potentiality of danger. It still depends on the situation, because I know of people when I was in high school that ended up homeless because their parents found out that they weren't straight. I actually had one that her dad told her to kill herself. All these horrible things. The danger that could still be given into the household will sometimes be, as you say, these quote-unquote ideologies or these things that are in your feelings or in your head or whatever. The child still deserves the right to reach out to somebody. And if that somebody happens to be a teacher, I don't see the problem with that.
Yeah, if it's to an adult, sure. If it's for literally a worker for a state, no. It doesn't logically follow, right? The state is supposed to enforce a narrative. It's a fixed mindset. So it's not something that can be swayed or something that can be interpreted. It's just enforced, right? So I would never trust someone who's supposed to enforce something rather than be malleable, right? Like a normal person. A normal person can have their mind changed and actually can give you honest answers. an agent worker cannot, right? And like
Right.
that type of thing. Like we can't like fool ourselves as if teachers are like these therapists or the everyday worker. They're literally confined to stay like something that is appropriate for their curriculum. That is all, right?
Which is why I said I don't think that every teacher should be having these conversations with kids.
I'm saying like no teacher, like no matter. I mean, you could be the greatest person in the world, right? But at the end of the day, this great person is confined to a strict set of rules that's defined by the state, right? And if it's every person has the right to not trust the state, but you can trust your neighbor. You can trust literally anyone else, right? And that's perfectly fine.
Doesn't mean you should. You should not always trust your neighbor. Jeffrey Dahmer was somebody's neighbor.
Okay, but like teachers also can't be trusted either. It's like that's just your intuition, right?
That's people. That's just people in general, man. Some people can be trusted and some people can't.
Yeah, but teachers doesn't that what is it about a teacher that suddenly is like
what is it about suddenly being a teacher that suddenly makes you untrustworthy?
Right, they have a fixed narrative. They cannot give a narrative that defies the curriculum.
I agree that the history teacher should probably not be talking to your kid about whatever, but I think that if it's something like that, then yeah, I think that the sex ed teacher should. I think the nurse should. I think that the counselor should. I think that your child deserves the right to reach out and get the help that they need through anything.
Right. I'm not against my child talking to, someone in my family, their grandmother, their grandfather,